He created the edgiest demon knight imaginable just to have fun role-playing. Instead, the NPCs believed every word he said. At first, he thought the developers had created the most realistic RPG ever made. He had no idea he had just stepped into a world that was terrifyingly real. The story begins with a young man who proudly considers himself a dedicated role-player. No matter what game he plays, he always commits completely to his chosen character without ever feeling embarrassed. To him, staying in character is the most important part of gaming. That belief is put to the ultimate test as he faces a gigantic monster on a ruined battlefield. The beast mocks him for running away and charges straight at him, demanding that he stop struggling and accept death. Exhausted and barely able to stand, the young man still raises his sword to fight, but unlike his fearless character, his real thoughts are filled with frustration. He curses this terrible game, wondering why escaping reality somehow led him into an even worse nightmare. Deep down, he no longer wants glory or victory. He just wants to abandon this cursed role-playing adventure and return home. The monster crashes into him with another devastating attack, and as everything fades, his only wish is to understand how he ended up in this situation. The story then jumps back to the very beginning. A system notification confirms a player's successful connection. At the same time, another story unfolds. A little girl excitedly runs toward the front door after believing her father has finally returned home. Instead, a black sword tears through her, staining her beautiful dress with blood. Chaos instantly erupts. Someone desperately screams Irina's name, hoping to stop the tragedy, but it is already too late. The family's eldest son, Captain of the Knights, falls next. His sister immediately charges the enemy in a desperate attempt to protect everyone. For just a brief moment, tears seem to shine in her eyes before they disappear beneath another spray of blood. Their mother rushes forward and shields the youngest boy with her weapon. While desperately holding off the attackers, she orders him to run. The terrified boy refuses. He insists that he is a knight too and wants to fight beside his family. His mother refuses to listen. She tells him that surviving is now his only duty. Soon, even his father joins the hopeless battle. After that, everything becomes a blur. The boy grabs a sword, the entire world turns crimson, and darkness consumes his vision until only the moon remains above him. Then, something impossible happens. A mysterious black blade buried inside his arm slowly sinks beneath his skin. Agonizing pain spreads throughout his entire body as he collapses inside the forest. A shadowy figure quietly approaches. Looking down at the helpless child, the mysterious being smiles with satisfaction and declares that it has finally found the perfect vessel. The frightened boy desperately begs for mercy, but the creature ignores every plea. It announces that from this moment onward, the child will become its new host. With no strength left, the boy offers one final prayer. He does not pray for his own life. Instead, he begs for someone strong enough to inherit his body, someone who can withstand the overwhelming darkness without breaking, someone capable of defeating the demon that destroyed everything. A mysterious voice suddenly asks if he can hear it. The young man wakes up gasping for air. Confused and disoriented, he looks around before an irritated carriage driver demands to know whether he plans to get off or stay there forever. He steps outside and discovers he is standing in the middle of a bustling marketplace called Tatara. Completely ignoring the confused driver, he walks away with excitement building inside him. Instead of panicking, he is amazed. The opening cinematic felt unbelievably realistic. Every person looks alive. Every sound feels genuine. Every detail is perfect. He cannot stop smiling. The game he has waited years to play is finally here. It is called Legend of Heroes, a legendary Korean RPG that originally disappeared years ago before receiving an incredible virtual reality remake. As someone who spent years anticipating its release, he cannot believe he is finally experiencing it. Being completely devoted to role-playing, he immediately throws himself into character and dramatically mutters that his eyes ache before quickly realizing how embarrassingly theatrical he sounds. To explain his playstyle, he reveals the custom background he personally created for his character. His class is the Demon Knight. According to his backstory, his entire family was slaughtered by a demon that now remains sealed inside his own arm. At any moment, that demon could take control of his body and massacre innocent people using his own hands. Fearing that possibility, the demon knight isolates himself from everyone around him, acting cold and distant to prevent anyone from getting close. The young man is incredibly proud of this tragic character concept. Unfortunately, everyone walking through the marketplace simply thinks he is a strange lunatic striking dramatic poses in the middle of the street. After enjoying himself for a while, he decides it is finally time to begin the tutorial. Except nothing happens. There is no quest window, no minimap, no objective marker. Confused, he wonders if an NPC is supposed to approach him first. Right on cue, a nervous little boy walks over and timidly asks whether he is the famous Demon Knight. The young man notices something unusual. Instead of selecting dialogue from a menu, he has to answer personally. Without breaking character, he silently stares at the frightened child before calmly confirming that he is indeed the Demon Knight. He then coldly orders the boy to lead the way. The poor child immediately begins stammering and nervously escorts him toward the Adventurers Guild. Inside, however, the young man cannot stop admiring everything around him. Every conversation happening on the streets sounds natural. Every movement feels genuine. The world reacts in real time. Even so, he convinces himself that everyone is simply advanced artificial intelligence. Eventually, they arrive at the bustling Tatara Adventurers Guild. The little guide proudly announces the arrival of the warrior. The young man is so impressed by the realistic wooden floor beneath his boots that he jokes the developers must have somehow borrowed alien technology. A friendly guild employee named Isin welcomes him and requests his adventurer's badge. At that exact moment, an inventory window suddenly appears, teaching him how to retrieve items simply by imagining them inside his bag. Although the floating menu blocks part of his vision, he ignores the inconvenience, retrieves the glowing badge, and hands it over. After confirming his identity, Isin explains that the client is in a tremendous hurry and begins leading him toward the quest briefing. Since he already completed this storyline in the original PC version years ago, he believes he knows exactly what is about to happen. Before they can continue, an elderly man with glasses storms into the room. The guildmaster immediately complains that the newcomer looks like nothing but trouble. He sarcastically asks whether the young man is fearless or simply eager to die. Instead of backing down, the role-playing enthusiast becomes even more excited. Since these are only NPCs, he decides to fully embrace his Demon Knight persona. The furious guildmaster demands an answer while Isin desperately tries to calm the situation. The young man slowly raises his head, fixes the old man with an icy stare, and delivers what he believes is the perfect in-character response. He coldly declares that the old man's tongue knows nothing of manners. Silence fills the entire guild. Every employee freezes. Even the guild master is completely speechless. The young man cannot understand why everyone reacted as though he had crossed a line over such a simple piece of dialogue. Only much later does he realize that this was the very first sign that something inside this game was horribly wrong. The guild falls into complete silence after the Demon Knight's disrespectful response. The young man cannot understand why everyone looks genuinely shocked over what he considers a perfectly normal role-playing line. To him, these NPCs are simply reacting with incredible realism, and that only makes the experience even more enjoyable. The guildmaster eventually breaks the silence and challenges him to keep that confidence after hearing the quest details. Still waiting for the quest window to appear, the young man watches as Isin laughs and asks whether he really accepted the mission without even knowing what it was. In reality, he only agreed because that was exactly how the original game unfolded. Without breaking character, he coldly orders her to continue. He confidently declares that no creature worthy of being called his enemy could possibly threaten him and dismisses whatever monsters await him as nothing more than insignificant insects. Before anyone can respond, another guild employee steps forward and begins explaining the mission. Workers were recently sent into the city's sewer system to repair damaged tunnels, but not a single one returned. A rescue team later entered the sewers and discovered the horrifying truth. A massive nest of demons had taken over the underground passages. The employee admits that the missing workers are most likely dead, but asks the Demon Knight to exterminate the entire nest and recover any belongings left behind. The guildmaster adds that every hunter previously sent into those tunnels was slaughtered. Even the temple has been too slow to respond. Although he summoned the famous Demon Knight because of his reputation, he cannot help questioning whether someone with such a lean build can even swing a proper sword. The young man is still confused about why no quest window has appeared, but he refuses to let the insult slide. He calmly tells the old man never to compare him with the weak. The guildmaster grumbles under his breath, while the other employees quickly try to prevent another argument. Inside, however, the young man feels slightly guilty. Their reactions are so lifelike that he almost wants to apologize. At the same time, he cannot hide how much he enjoys interacting with characters that actually respond to his role-playing, instead of making fun of it like real players always did. Eason officially asks whether he accepts the mission. Without hesitation, he accepts. She explains the objective clearly. Eliminate every demon inside the sewers. Recovering the workers' belongings is optional. Curious, the young man asks how many people disappeared. The answer is 13. The deadline is 1 month and 2 extra days. Then comes the reward, 400,000 coins. The only catch is that the guild keeps 5% as a handling fee. Even knowing that it is just standard game logic, he still feels like the guild somehow managed to rob him before the quest even started. With a bright smile, Eisen finalizes the contract and asks him to return safely once the mission is complete. As she hands him the paperwork to sign, the sound he has been waiting for finally echoes in his ears. The tutorial window appears. The quest has officially begun. He cannot stop smiling. The developers even delayed the interface until the contract was signed, just to make the experience feel natural. To prepare him, another employee reserves a room at the local inn and hands him an old hand-drawn map of the sewer system that functions as his mini-map. Before sending him off, the young man notices something unexpected. The employee's worried expression looks completely genuine. For a brief moment, it feels less like a game and more like someone sincerely fearing he may never return alive. Remaining in character, the Demon Knight declares that once he has accepted both the mission and its reward, failure is no longer an option. Soon afterward, the massive iron gate leading into the underground slowly opens with a deafening rumble. The Demon Knight walks into the darkness without looking back. A nearby guard wishes him luck. He simply replies that he understands before drawing an enormous two-handed greatsword capable of crushing nearly any enemy. The first demon rushes toward him. One clean swing tears the creature apart instantly. As he studies the result, another notification catches his attention. His weapon's durability has already dropped by 1 point. Realizing that such a massive blade is impractical inside the narrow tunnels, he stores it away and switches to a standard longsword instead. Balanced, reliable, and much easier to handle. Now, he finally feels ready to begin hunting. Watching him disappear into the darkness, the guard shivers. The knight's presence alone is enough to intimidate everyone nearby. All the man can do is hope his skills match his confidence. Deeper inside the sewer, the hunt begins. The Demon Knight rushes through the tunnels with his sword glowing green. Every strike is clean. Every movement is precise. The demons barely have time to react before they are cut down one after another. Their attacks never touch him. His swordsmanship is flawless. Standing among the corpses, he coldly declares that every abomination will return to the underworld where it belongs. One final slash removes the last monster's head, ending the battle. The system immediately announces that the objective has been cleared. Instead of celebrating, the young man stares at the battlefield in disappointment. Not a single monster dropped any loot. After defeating an entire nest, he did not receive one item. He quickly convinces himself the developers balanced the generous quest reward by removing monster drops altogether. Feeling cheated, he almost starts searching every corpse by hand. Then he notices someone else nearby. A little boy is trapped inside a mass of vines, silently watching everything. One quick slash cuts the vines apart. The child loses his balance, but before he can hit the ground, the Demon Knight catches him with one armored hand. The stunned boy awkwardly thanks his rescuer while hanging upside down. Another notification confirms the successful rescue. Looking at the child, the young man realizes he is about the same age as the younger brother from his own character's tragic backstory. He reflects on how horrifying that fictional past really is. At least this time, Unlike the opening cinematic, he managed to save someone. Wanting to comfort the frightened child, he almost pats him on the head before remembering that his character is supposed to be cold and distant. Instead, he reminds himself that protecting the weak is simply part of a knight's duty. The little boy gazes at him with admiration and timidly asks whether he is truly a knight. He quietly confirms that he is. Then, he asks why the child entered such a dangerous place. Fighting back tears, the boy explains that his mother worked in the sewers and never came home. Unable to wait any longer, he came looking for her himself. The demon knight gently scolds him, explaining that he should have trusted the adults instead of risking his own life. The boy lowers his head and sincerely apologizes. Inside, the young man wants nothing more than to hug the child, but he maintains his role and calmly tells him that he is apologizing to the wrong person. As they recover the belongings left behind by the victims, the little boy immediately recognizes an item that belonged to his mother. His face crumbles. Unable to hold back any longer, he bursts into tears. The demon knight quietly watches him cry until exhaustion finally puts the child to sleep. Without saying a word, he carefully carries the sleeping boy through the tunnels. The realism is almost overwhelming. His movements, expressions, and emotions all feel so natural that the young man genuinely wonders whether the developers somehow used a real child for the motion capture. As they finally leave the sewer, he breathes a sigh of relief, reassuring himself that all of this is simply part of a video game. Then another system notification appears. Areas corrupted by demonic energy must be purified with holy power. Otherwise, the demons will continue spawning forever. The warning seems insignificant now, but years later he will realize ignoring that single message became one of his greatest regrets. Back at the Adventurers Guild, the peaceful atmosphere is shattered. A messenger bursts through the entrance with an urgent report. The Merchants Guild has fired a red emergency flare. Red means numerous casualties. Everyone immediately realizes something terrible has happened. The scene shifts to a blood-soaked forest. Bodies lie scattered across the ground. Several survivors struggle to stay alive among the carnage. One injured man trembles uncontrollably as he stares toward whatever massacred his companions. Not far away, a frightened little boy hides behind a tree, desperately covering his own mouth to stop himself from making a sound. Heavy footsteps echo through the forest. Something is slowly approaching. Moments before returning to the guild, the little boy rescued from the sewers finally wakes up in the demon knight's arms. Looking up with tearful eyes, he quietly asks whether his mother is happy by God's side. The young man almost laughs to himself, thinking the only gods in this world are probably the game developers. Even so, he cannot bring himself to ruin the moment. Hoping the story was not written to be even crueler, he gently comforts the child before continuing toward the guild. As soon as they step inside, Isine rushes over in surprise. She never expected the demon knight to return so quickly after entering the demon nest. Her attention soon shifts to the quiet child standing beside him, and she curiously asks who he is. Remaining completely in character, the knight calmly explains that the boy is the son of one of the missing workers before telling her to hear the rest of the story directly from him. He then extends a large cloth bag toward Isine. Thinking he is handing it over, she instinctively grabs it. The unexpected weight nearly makes her lose her balance. Confused, she asks whether the bag really contains the belongings of all 13 missing workers. The demon knight bluntly asks what else it could possibly be. Realizing the truth, Isine quietly apologizes and promises that every item will be returned to the victims' families. She opens the bag just enough to see the identification tags inside. The sight immediately brings tears to her eyes. The missing workers are no longer considered missing. Their deaths have been confirmed. Holding back her emotions, she bows deeply and sincerely, thanks the demon knight on behalf of the entire Adventurers Guild. Meanwhile, the young man happily celebrates in his mind. He completed the entire dungeon without quest markers or navigation assistance, and hearing such genuine gratitude completely erases his earlier frustration over the lack of monster loot. The immersion is unbelievable. Before he can leave, Isine asks whether he plans to stop hunting for the day. The question catches him completely off guard. From his perspective, no gamer would willingly stop playing after only one quest. She gently suggests that he rest before heading back out. but he cannot understand why anyone would waste precious playtime sleeping inside a game after spending all his savings on expensive full dive equipment. Still acting as the Demon Knight, he calmly asks why he would need to rest before returning to the sewers. He also mentions the need to purify the contaminated area. The word immediately confuses Isin. She has no idea what purification means. Instead, she nervously asks whether he really defeated every demon in the sewer by himself. Maintaining his proud attitude, the Demon Knight answers that he did, and coldly asks whether she doubted his abilities. Panicking, Isin immediately apologizes and insists she never questioned his strength. She explains that the guild will take care of the rescued child before asking him to wait while she brings the client responsible for the request. While waiting, the young man finally opens his interface to inspect his skills and level. Instead, another tutorial objective appears. His next task is simply speaking with the client. Soon afterward, the guild presents him with a heavy bag containing his reward: 400,000 gold coins. The amount impresses him, especially because quests are almost the only reliable way to earn money in the game. The guild also explains they purchase monster materials for a good price. That reminder makes him remember the skinning skill used to harvest monster parts. Even so, he has absolutely no intention of learning it. For him, character concept comes before efficiency. A proud Demon Knight would naturally master combat techniques, not spend time carving up monster corpses. Since this is a single-player game, nobody can criticize his build. Once everything is finished, he calmly asks whether his business with the guild has officially ended. Receiving no objections, he turns to leave. At that exact moment, a massive golden quest-cleared crane explodes across his vision with an incredibly loud fanfare. The dramatic sound startles him. Almost immediately afterward, another scream echoes through the guild. The same frantic messenger rushes inside once again. The guildmaster shouts at him, asking whether his pants are on fire. Completely out of breath, the messenger announces that another emergency has broken out. The Merchants Guild has fired a red distress flare just outside the city. Everyone inside immediately understands the situation. A red flare means countless casualties. The young man, however, simply smiles. To him, this is obviously the game's way of chaining quests together. The furious guild master curses the city guards for being too slow before ordering every available adventurer to move. He then points directly at the Demon Knight and orders him to join the rescue. The young man intends to accept anyway, but first he cannot resist delivering another dramatic line. Looking the old man straight in the eyes, he coldly warns him never to order the Demon Knight around again. Rather than arguing, the guildmaster immediately offers an even larger reward if he helps save the survivors. That is more than enough. The Demon Knight accepts. Isin wishes him luck and promises to prepare the new contract while the fresh rescue quest appears on his interface. The guide recommends meeting the local mercenaries first. The Demon Knight immediately refuses. Every second matters. A red flare means people are dying right now. There is no time for unnecessary detours. Even the guildmaster agrees, reminding everyone that anyone capable of clearing the entire sewer alone is unlikely to die so easily. The guide quickly leads him toward a waiting horse. Confident from years of playing riding simulators, the young man mounts it without hesitation. As the horse charges toward the forest, he secretly hopes the monsters survive just long enough for him to earn all the experience himself. The powerful animal races through the trees at full speed. In the distance, the glow of burning fires becomes visible between the branches. Preparing himself for battle, the Demon Knight quietly whispers that victory belongs only to his sword. Without slowing down, the horse crashes directly through a group of goblins blocking the road, trampling several beneath its hooves. The knight immediately follows with his blade. His powerful swings carve through the monsters without mercy. The surviving merchants cheer at the sight of reinforcements. That hope quickly turns into disbelief. Only one knight answered the distress call. One wounded mercenary desperately struggles against a goblin, convinced he is about to die. Then, without warning, the creature is cleanly sliced in half. The Demon Knight lands gracefully in the middle of the battlefield before sprinting toward the largest group of monsters surrounding the merchant caravan. Standing before the terrified survivors, he calmly announces that they called for help and now their wish will be answered. He promises every monster there will die before the blood of the wounded has time to dry. The injured mercenary stares in disbelief and asks whether he truly intends to fight the entire horde alone. The Demon Knight does not even acknowledge the question. To him, the answer is obvious. His sword begins glowing red. One swing, several goblins fall apart. Another strike cuts a monster cleanly in half. Within seconds, the battlefield is covered with defeated enemies. The surviving merchants can only stare at the lone armored warrior standing among the bodies. One of them quietly wonders whether the terrifying figure before them is truly a knight. The overwhelming demonic aura surrounding him makes the man question whether he is actually another monster. Far away from the battlefield, a beautiful red-haired female warrior suddenly stops in her tracks. She senses an enormous surge of demonic energy. Turning toward the archmage traveling beside her, she says they must head to the Tatara trading post as soon as dawn arrives. Whatever is releasing that overwhelming darkness cannot be ignored. The battle finally comes to an end, and the Demon Knight checks the quest window. 30 out of 52 people survived the attack. One of the survivors thanks him with tears in his eyes, while the young man quietly wipes his mouth in disgust. The game's realism is so absurd that pieces of monster flesh actually ended up in his mouth during the fight. Before he can complain any further, panicked shouting erupts across the battlefield. One of the wounded suddenly begins foaming at the mouth. A system notification immediately explains what is happening. Anyone injured by demons has a chance of becoming corrupted. If the contamination spreads too far, the victim will transform into a monster. The survivors desperately ask whether there is any cure. Watching the chaos unfold, the young man calmly remembers this mechanic from the original version of the game. Every direct attack from a demon gradually filled a corruption meter. Since his Demon Knight class is naturally immune due to the demon sealed inside him, he completely forgot the mechanic even existed. Without wasting another second, he opens his inventory. After searching through his starting equipment, he pulls out a glowing green potion and throws it toward the group's leader. He simply orders the man to use it. The survivor immediately recognizes it as a powerful antidote against demonic corruption. Overwhelmed with relief, he thanks the Demon Knight before rushing to save the infected. The young man also hands over spare bandages and sedatives, ordering everyone to treat the wounded before it is too late. As the survivors scramble to save one another, he finally understands why the game provided those seemingly random starting items. Checking the quest window again, he notices the number of survivors stabilizes. Just as he believes everything is over, the thunder of galloping horses echoes across the road. A large force of armed knights arrives, carrying blazing torches. The exhausted survivors cheer as real reinforcements finally reach the battlefield. Another notification appears. The rescue quest has been completed. The young man breathes a sigh of relief. Unfortunately, the game immediately gives him another objective: collect every body and recover all remaining belongings. He cannot believe the tutorial expects him to perform cleanup duty after saving everyone. Already imagining himself dragging corpses around, he worries it will completely ruin his cool and mysterious image. Thankfully, the arriving knights begin carrying the bodies and stretchers themselves. Even better, their work counts toward his quest completion. The young man happily folds his arms and lets the NPCs do all the heavy lifting while he quietly enjoys the free progress. Nearby, several mercenaries grumble that the armored warrior is standing around looking arrogant while everyone else works. Hearing their complaints only makes him smile. As the conversations continue, he overhears something interesting. The survivors mention that the number of corpses is far lower than it should be. Many bodies have completely disappeared. The group concludes they should return to the city before more monsters arrive, criticizing the local lord for failing to keep the roads safe despite collecting heavy taxes. The young man immediately connects the dots. Missing corpses usually mean a dark warlock is involved. He quietly concludes, this is probably setting up another investigation quest later in the story. Moments later, the collection objective is officially completed. Without another word, the Demon Knight mounts his horse and returns to the Adventurers Guild. Back at the guild, the grumpy guild master silently studies him before finally admitting that he performed well. Naturally, the Demon Knight responds by reminding the old man to prepare a reward worthy of the danger he faced. The Guildmaster immediately explodes, demanding whether the knight thinks the guild cannot afford to pay its adventurers. Before the argument continues, the old man slams his heavy staff against the floor. His expression suddenly becomes serious. He has another mission. The Demon Knight simply tells him to continue. Ignoring the concerns of the other employees, the Guildmaster explains that another dangerous demon extermination request has appeared in the Northwest Forest. Isin quickly objects. That mission has already been assigned to another party of adventurers. The Guildmaster angrily replies that those adventurers have failed to report back for far too long. After witnessing the Demon Knight clear impossible missions alone, he has decided to send him personally. Despite his rough personality, the young man secretly begins respecting the old man. He simply asks whether eliminating every demon inside the Northwest Forest is all that is required. Seeing his determination, Isin reluctantly begins preparing the paperwork, although she remains worried about the missing adventurers. The Guildmaster dismisses them as too weak to finish the job. Even so, Isin reminds him that canceling their contract will still cost the guild money. The guild representative nervously asks whether the Demon Knight truly intends to accept such a dangerous request. Since it is already late, he suggests discussing the details after spending the night at a nearby inn. The following morning, the contract is finally presented. The base reward is 700,000 gold coins. Hearing such an enormous amount nearly shocks the young man, but he maintains his cold expression and calmly asks whether that is the final offer. Because it is a private request, the representative immediately raises the payment by another 200,000 coins. The young man still does not react. He simply asks whether that is truly everything. Internally, he is celebrating. He somehow managed to negotiate a better reward without even unlocking the negotiation skill. Feeling pressured, the representative blurts out one final offer. Another 300,000 coins. The young man is screaming with excitement inside his head. Outwardly, however, he calmly orders them to prepare the carriage immediately. The representative nervously suggests resting for another full day before departing. The Demon Knight refuses without hesitation. As long as a demon remains alive, wasting time is unacceptable. Soon the carriage rolls through the peaceful medieval city toward the Northwest Forest. The young man cannot help imagining how he will eventually invest all this money into the game's real estate system once he becomes rich enough. During the trip, the young guide named Aaron timidly asks whether he is truly an adventurer from the guild. Since he only registered there to receive quests and rewards, the young man replies that he is not. Aaron immediately looks disappointed. Realizing he may have been too cold, the Demon Knight softens his tone and asks whether there is anything the boy wants to know. Aaron's eyes immediately light up. He asks whether the knight has ever seen the ocean. Smiling to himself, the young man answers yes. He describes the sea as an endless blue horizon, comparing its color to Aaron's beautiful blue eyes and its rolling waves to the boy's curly hair. Aaron beams with happiness after hearing such a compliment. The peaceful journey continues without incident. As evening approaches, however, the atmosphere suddenly becomes tense. The sound of clashing steel echoes through the forest ahead. Someone is already fighting. A fierce female warrior shouts that her opponent has betrayed God by becoming human. Declaring that she will carry out divine judgment herself, she prepares to execute her target. Unknowingly, the Demon Knight has just arrived at the next battlefield. To understand how the battle began, the story briefly rewinds. While traveling through the forest, the young man opens a new system notification. It introduces enemy detection, a combat skill that senses hostile intent nearby. The moment he reads the description, he grins. Searching an entire forest for a demon suddenly sounds incredibly easy. Then the interface flashes bright red. Hostile target detected, less than 10 meters away. Before he can react, an angry voice explodes behind him. Someone accuses him of betraying God by becoming a human before charging forward with murderous intent. A red-haired female warrior bursts out of the shadows, raising a massive weapon above her head before bringing it crashing down toward him. The young man barely reacts in time. Steel collides with steel as he blocks the devastating strike. The impact is so heavy that he immediately worries about his longsword's durability. With a perfectly timed parry, he forces the attacker backward. She skids across the dirt, struggling to regain her footing while he calmly studies her. Remaining completely composed, he asks whether she belongs to a religious order. Without hesitation, she confirms it. She came for one reason: his execution. The answer leaves him genuinely confused. He cannot understand why a priestess wants him dead. Calmly, he points out that followers of God are supposed to show mercy instead of behaving like violent fanatics. The red-haired warrior immediately snaps back. She demands to know how a mere demon dares lecture her about violence. The word demon echoes through his mind, again and again. Completely confused, he begins wondering whether she is actually talking about him. He quickly reviews everything in his inventory, trying to remember whether he accidentally equipped some cursed item. Then he notices it. Floating beside him is the tiny spirit connected to the demon sealed inside his arm. Everything suddenly clicks. Looking down at his armored gauntlet, he realizes this misunderstanding perfectly matches the tragic backstory he personally wrote for his character. Instead of correcting her, he decides to embrace it. Pointing his sword toward the crimson moon, he shouts that she must never call him a demon. He dramatically declares that victory belongs to his blade, while all glory belongs to the heavens. The Inquisitor is completely disgusted. She accuses him of abandoning God and dares him to stop pretending to be a knight. Then, she launches another furious attack. The young man quietly realizes she has a point. Technically, his character was never officially recognized as a knight. That thought immediately answers another question. There is absolutely no reason to fight honorably. He effortlessly dodges her heavy strike while she curses him for hiding in the shadows like a coward. Another system notification appears. Skill unlocked. Break. The skill channels demonic mana into the weapon before releasing a devastating downward strike. Without hesitation, he activates it. Dark purple energy erupts around both his body and sword. The Inquisitor hurriedly raises her massive shield, barely managing to withstand the crushing impact. A violent shockwave tears across the battlefield. Watching her hide behind the enormous shield, the young man casually asks why she is cowering like a turtle. Refusing to back down, the Inquisitor bathes herself in brilliant holy light. She swears that God himself is blessing her battle against evil. The blinding radiance forces the Demon Knight to shield his own eyes with his armored arm. Complaining about the brightness, he quickly analyzes the effect. It is not just an attack, it is a powerful enhancement that boosts both offense and defense. He immediately notices something strange. In the original version of the game, that skill only strengthened the user's weapon. Now it empowers the entire body. The remake has clearly changed far more mechanics than he expected. Without giving him time to think, the Inquisitor charges again with her weapon shining brilliantly. The young man quickly realizes she is no longer aiming directly for him. She is spreading the holy light itself across the battlefield. Fortunately, priest classes are notoriously slow. No matter how powerful she becomes, his Demon Knight class still holds a massive speed advantage. He rushes forward and unleashes a series of rapid attacks. Every strike crashes harmlessly against her enormous shield. His expression immediately darkens. Breaking through that defense by force is impossible. He instantly changes tactics. The Inquisitor taunts him, demanding he fight properly instead of relying on tricks. He gladly accepts the invitation. Rather than attacking from the front, he leaps high into the air. The surprised warrior watches as he lands directly on top of her shield. Using his momentum, he crushes down on the heavy defense and throws her completely off balance. Her bulky armor leaves her far too slow to recover. Looking down at her, the Demon Knight coldly declares that this is where her journey ends. His sword descends with overwhelming force, glowing with dark crimson energy. The Inquisitor desperately struggles to withstand the impact as the crushing pressure drives her deeper into the ground. The battle perfectly demonstrates the Demon Knight's greatest strength: unmatched agility. He constantly overwhelms his opponent with speed, while she struggles to keep up beneath her heavy armor. Just as he prepares to finish the fight, another voice suddenly begins chanting a spell. The young man's attention immediately shifts toward the source. A colossal pillar of fire erupts across the battlefield. His eyes widen in shock. A mage, Someone wearing elegant robes calmly walks into the clearing, casually remarking that she never expected to see the mighty Inquisitor having so much trouble. Beside the flames stands a white-furred beastkin archmage carrying a glowing staff. With a confident smile, she announces that she will be joining the battle. The red-haired Inquisitor immediately relaxes, clearly happy to have backup. Meanwhile, the young man is completely bewildered. The two women openly refer to themselves as an Inquisitor and an SX, Archmage. Those are not ordinary classes. Checking the system in a panic, he confirms the truth. Both of them have already reached the third evolution of their respective classes. Only then does reality finally hit him. He is facing the perfect team, a heavily armored frontline defender supported by a powerful long-range archmage. And the worst part is that he has only just finished the tutorial. He is still a low-level beginner. The young man stares at the two powerful enemies in disbelief. He cannot believe the developers seriously threw opponents like this at someone who had only just finished the tutorial. To him, the fight feels completely unfair. It is like asking an egg to shatter a mountain. His hands begin trembling as he imagines the pain of dying. Then an even worse thought crosses his mind. What exactly is the death penalty in this game? As panic begins taking over, a new theory suddenly pops into his head. What if this impossible battle is actually intentional? He remembers that death itself is a game mechanic. Perhaps losing here is simply part of the tutorial. Maybe dying unlocks the rest of the game's features. The idea immediately calms him down. Instead of resisting fate, he happily thanks the developers for creating such a realistic experience. If he is destined to die anyway, then he might as well go out looking cool. Closing his eyes for a brief moment, he makes up his mind. He refuses to beg. He refuses to run. If this is his final battle, he will stay completely true to his Demon Knight persona until the very end. Opening his eyes, he calmly mocks the Archmage. He tells her that someone carrying the title of the Wise should know better than to threaten others while hiding behind a reckless child. The red-haired Inquisitor immediately explodes in anger, accusing him of pretending to be innocent despite making a pact with demons. Before the argument can continue, another system alert suddenly flashes. Hostile target detected, less than 10 meters away. The young man freezes. Heavy footsteps echo through the forest behind him. At first, he assumes the two women have summoned reinforcements. Then, he senses it. The overwhelming presence does not belong to a human. A gigantic monster emerges from the darkness. The Archmage instantly recognizes it. Medusa. Meanwhile, the Inquisitor points her weapon at the Demon Knight and accuses him of lying all along, convinced that he summoned the monster himself. The young man cannot help smiling. He sarcastically tells her that perhaps all that holy light has damaged her eyesight. Ignoring the accusations, he turns toward the enormous serpent. As soon as he kills this monster, he plans to shut the Inquisitor's mouth once and for all. A system window identifies the creature. Medusa is not a single snake. It is a massive monster formed from hundreds of intertwined serpents. Seeing the description immediately reassures him. This is a scripted story event. The developers would never throw an unwinnable situation at him without a reason. Now, he finally has the perfect distraction. Grinning from ear to ear, he charges straight at the monster while loudly declaring that every creature standing in his path will receive only death. The Inquisitor immediately moves to intercept him. Before she can attack, the Archmage desperately shouts for her to stop. Something about the young man suddenly feels completely different. Ignoring both women, the Demon Knight focuses entirely on the Medusa. He remembers exactly how this boss worked in the original game. Players were supposed to kill hundreds of ordinary snakes until eventually finding the real serpent hidden somewhere inside the nest. To him, that sounds incredibly tedious. Thanks to the remake's unbelievable realism, he realizes the true body is actually easy to locate. With one perfectly aimed strike, he cuts deep into the writhing mass of snakes. Dark blood erupts across the battlefield. Without hesitating, he throws away his sword. A blade would only get in the way now. Instead, he thrusts his armored arm directly into the center of the living nest. His hand tears through countless serpents before finally reaching something solid. A triumphant grin spreads across his face. He found it. The real red serpent. He rips the smaller snake free from the massive cluster and raises it high into the air. The creature desperately writhes inside his iron grip. With one final squeeze, he crushes its skull. Instantly, the enormous Medusa collapses. Its lifeless body crashes onto the forest floor. The young man quietly admires the scene before stepping onto the defeated monster with complete confidence. Silence fills the forest once again. The Inquisitor and the Archmage can only stare in absolute disbelief. The terrifying monster they expected to fight for their lives died within seconds. Picking up his blood-covered sword, the Demon Knight coldly comments that even a religious fanatic apparently knows when not to interfere. Covered in monster blood from head to toe, he congratulates the two women for wisely staying out of his way instead of charging toward their own graves. He even asks the stunned Inquisitor whether she wants him to tear her insolent mouth apart as a reward. For the first time, the Archmage genuinely loses her composure. Breaking into a cold sweat, she immediately apologizes and begs him to hear them out. The confused Inquisitor still insists he is a servant of evil. The Archmage firmly corrects her. The young man is not a demon pact-maker. He is something entirely different. The Inquisitor argues that he clearly used demonic power during the battle. How could that possibly be explained? The Archmage calmly reveals that such cases only exist within ancient theories studied at the Academy. Normally, anyone possessed by a parasitic demon completely loses their mind and becomes nothing more than a mindless puppet. The young man, however, has achieved the impossible. Instead of being controlled, he suppressed the demon and turned its own power into his weapon. The Inquisitor can barely believe what she is hearing. She stammers that no ordinary human should possess enough willpower to dominate such overwhelming evil. The Archmage quietly answers that nothing is truly impossible. People simply give that name to things they fail to understand. She then gestures toward the armored warrior standing before them. How else could anyone describe a man like him? Listening to the entire conversation, the young man happily enjoys the unexpected explanation. He silently lets the Archmage keep making his character sound cooler than he originally intended. Finally, he interrupts. Looking at both women, he asks whether they are finished whispering about him while he is standing right there. Still fully committed to his role, he sarcastically remarks that being compared to a zombie is rather insulting. The Archmage sincerely apologizes again and offers to grant any wish he desires as compensation for attacking him by mistake. The young man immediately dismisses the offer. Assuming she only intends to reward him with coins or items, he decides to stay in character. Instead, he coldly asks whether they would cut out their own tongues if he demanded it. Neither woman answers. Seeing their silence, he tells them to keep their meaningless apologies. Although he would love to rip their jaws off and hang them above the city gates, doing so would make him no different from the demons he despises. With that, he sheathes his sword and orders both of them to leave immediately. As he walks away, he cannot stop celebrating inside his head. The improvisation is going perfectly. The NPCs react so naturally that it feels like performing in front of a real audience. A dark and mysterious character only looks cool when everyone else completely believes the act. Just before leaving the area, he suddenly remembers something important: the quest reward. He quickly bends down to collect the corpse of the defeated serpent. Before he can leave with it, someone calls out for him to wait. The young man immediately worries that they are about to stop him from taking the monster he worked so hard to defeat. Instead, the red-haired Inquisitor slowly approaches him. With a much calmer expression than before, she quietly asks him to listen to her for just a moment. Watching her approach, the young man immediately begins wondering whether this conversation is about to trigger another quest. The red-haired Inquisitor lowers her head and sincerely apologizes for attacking him. She admits that no explanation can justify what she did and asks for his forgiveness. The young man is genuinely surprised. In most games, elite NPCs are far too proud to admit their mistakes. Seeing someone apologize so honestly almost feels awkward. Since he already understands the misunderstanding, he quietly lets the matter go. The Inquisitor promises to offer any compensation within her power. For a moment, the young man wonders if this is one of those companion recruitment events. The reward sounds tempting. Then he immediately rejects the idea. His Demon Knight is meant to walk alone. Traveling with companions would completely ruin the character he spent so much time creating. Keeping his cold demeanor, he dismisses her apology and tells her he has no need for their hypocrisy. The Inquisitor immediately protests that she is being sincere. Before the conversation escalates again, the Archmage gently places a hand on her shoulder and tells her to calm down. She reminds her that they still have their own duties to complete. Although they failed to eliminate the supposed demon, the purification of the area has already been finished. Looking disappointed, the Inquisitor quietly accepts and follows her companion. The two women begin leaving the forest. Unfortunately, they happen to choose the exact same road as the Demon Knight. The young man notices footsteps following behind him. His frustration immediately returns. He knows he selected the shortest route back to the city using the system map. Since they cannot even see his map, why are they still behind him? Listening to them discuss purification only irritates him further. Eventually, he stops walking altogether. Looking back over his shoulder, he coldly orders them to leave him alone and stop following him. His voice carries such overwhelming hostility that the atmosphere instantly freezes. He even asks whether they somehow mistook his previous warning for a joke. The Archmage quickly apologizes once again. She calmly explains that they are not following him at all. She simply cast a path-tracking spell, and it happens to be guiding them toward exactly the same destination. The young man immediately falls silent. They were never chasing him. They were just using the fantasy world's version of GPS. Embarrassed by his unnecessary outburst, he quietly speeds up his pace in hopes of getting away before anyone notices. Watching him leave, the Inquisitor calls after him. She warns that traveling through the forest alone at night is dangerous. Without even turning around, he replies that the forest is only dangerous for people as weak as they are. Inside, however, he is simply praying the game will stop creating awkward situations. The Inquisitor watches him disappear into the darkness with obvious concern. She quietly asks the Archmage whether letting someone like him wander alone is truly the right decision. If a warrior that powerful ever loses control to the demon inside him, the consequences would be catastrophic. The Archmage admits she has never encountered anyone like him before. She sincerely hopes he never succumbs to the darkness. Then she quietly adds that hope and reality rarely walk the same path. The Inquisitor tightens her grip on her weapon before revealing that she secretly placed a tracking spell on him. The Archmage agrees. For now, they will continue watching over him from afar. As the two women continue beneath the moonlight, the older mage silently prays that God protects the mysterious Demon Knight. Meanwhile, the young man finally reaches the peaceful city. Late at night, he walks through the quiet streets until he arrives at the Adventurers Guild. Inside, Isen is cleaning the reception hall. She politely informs him that it is already too late to process any completed quests until morning. Then she finally looks up. The sight nearly makes her scream. The Demon Knight stands before her covered from head to toe in blood, while an ominous dark aura surrounds his body. Without saying anything unnecessary, he places a bloody bag on the counter and calmly orders her to confirm the quest's completion. Still shaken, Isen hurriedly opens the bag. Inside, she finds the body of a tiny red serpent. For a brief moment, she simply stares. Then her eyes widen in complete disbelief. That tiny snake is the true body of the Medusa. Unable to contain her shock, she blurts out that he traveled to the forest, defeated the monster, and returned in only 2 days. Hearing her amazement, the young man almost laughs. She has absolutely no idea what those 2 days actually felt like. His mind immediately flashes back to the journey home. After dramatically walking away from the two women, he confidently expected the game to provide some convenient fast travel option. Instead, nothing happened. The carriage ride to the forest had taken 8 hours. The return trip had to be completed entirely on foot. Hour after hour passed. Morning became afternoon. Afternoon became evening. Even after night fell, he was still walking through endless roads. The game never skipped the journey. It forced him to experience every exhausting step. He even considered setting up camp. Unfortunately, the forest was so realistic that swarms of insects made resting almost impossible. By the time the system finally announced that he had re-entered the tutorial city, he nearly cried from happiness. Back in the present, Isen carefully examines the monster remains and confirms that everything matches the guild's records. The Medusa has truly been defeated. She promises that once morning arrives, the remaining paperwork will be completed and his enormous reward will finally be paid. The familiar quest cleared. Notification appears. Almost immediately afterward, the young man feels an overwhelming wave of dizziness. His entire body suddenly feels heavy. Confused, he wonders why he feels physically exhausted despite only playing a game. Seeing how drained he looks, Isin recommends that he immediately get some rest at the local inn. The young man thanks her. Despite all his complaints, he admits to himself that he probably would have quit already if the immersion were not so unbelievably impressive. Isin then asks Aaron to escort the demon knight to the White Wind Inn. The cheerful boy happily agrees and immediately leads the way. As they walk, Aaron excitedly asks what kind of demon the knight defeated. The demon knight calmly answers that demons are never something to speak about lightly. The boy instantly apologizes for asking. Seeing the child's frightened reaction, the young man feels terrible. He realizes he accidentally acted like an overly strict adult towards someone who genuinely admired him. Quietly, he decides that once they reach the inn, he will give Aaron a generous tip as thanks. Finally arriving at his room, he collapses face first onto the soft bed. Staring at the ceiling, he seriously wonders whether he should simply quit the game altogether. Then, he checks his status window. His fatigue meter has reached 100%. Even stranger, the exhaustion feels completely real. Deciding to think about everything after waking up, he schedules his character to sleep for 6 hours. He presses the virtual confirmation button. The room falls silent. Hours pass peacefully beneath the moonlit sky. Then, soft footsteps echo through the wooden hallway. The bedroom door slowly begins to open. A shadow quietly slips inside. An unknown figure wrapped in cloth bandages silently raises a heavy metal weapon above the sleeping demon knight. A masked assassin prepares to strike before his target ever has a chance to wake up. The moment the young man begins waking up, another system alert suddenly appears. Hostile target detected within 10 meters. Without even opening his eyes completely, he instinctively grabs his sword. A spiked club crashes down toward his head. Steel collides with iron as he blocks the surprise attack at the last possible moment. The attacker curses in frustration. The young man immediately fires back, complaining that he should be the one getting angry after some lunatic tried to cave in his skull while he was sleeping. He cannot help criticizing the enemy detection skill. What is the point of a warning system that only activates when the enemy is already standing on top of him? Without giving the intruder another chance, he shoves the man backward with surprising strength. The thief stumbles in complete disbelief. The demon knight calmly rises to his feet before striking him with the flat of his sword. The blow makes the robber cry out in pain. Realizing he is completely outmatched, the thief immediately begs for mercy and admits he only wanted to steal the bag of gold coins. Still acting in character, the demon knight orders him to throw down his weapon and place both hands on his head. Inside, however, the young man cannot help thinking that he sounds more like a police officer than a dark and mysterious knight. With no choice left, the robber drops the heavy club onto the floor. He desperately begs for his life. The demon knight sarcastically asks whether bags of coins are normally earned by smashing people's heads open. The robber suddenly reveals a hidden dagger. Shouting that this is exactly how the world works, he lunges forward. The young man easily sidesteps the desperate attack. One precise strike lands against the back of the thief's neck. The robber immediately collapses unconscious. Dragging the limp body across the floor, the demon knight mocks him for believing such a tiny dagger could actually kill him. At the same time, he complains to himself that it is ridiculous to get mugged after finally finding a place to rest. He is just a casual player. Why is the game making him deal with this? Kicking the in-room door open, he drags the unconscious thief downstairs toward the reception desk. The loud noise startles the receptionist awake. She screams in panic. The demon knight apologizes for disturbing her sleep, explaining that he simply wants to rest. Unfortunately, his blood-covered appearance only terrifies her even more. The woman immediately accuses him of committing murder. Completely confused, he asks whether she is blind. The man is unconscious, not dead. Before he can explain further, another warning flashes across his interface. Hostile target detected. A familiar red-haired inquisitor rushes into the inn. Without asking any questions, she immediately accuses him of murdering someone only moments after arriving in town. She even calls him a conscious zombie before charging straight at him. The demon knight effortlessly blocks her weapon. Sighing to himself, he wonders why this woman always appears at the perfect moment to misunderstand everything. The two glare at one another inside the inn. Almost automatically, his role-playing instincts take over. He coldly warns her that if she continues chasing him, he will kill her. Then he remembers something amusing. The tragic backstory he wrote for the Demon Knight included several phrases that instantly trigger his anger. Somehow, this woman manages to say every single one of them. The Inquisitor points her holy weapon toward him and calls him a filthy demon. Inside, the young man celebrates. She walks straight into his character's favorite dialogue. Smirking confidently, he tells her she seems eager to meet her end. Dark energy gathers around his blade as he warns everyone nearby to stand back if they value their lives. Both warriors charge. Just before their weapons collide, glowing chains of light erupt from the ground and bind the Demon Knight. He immediately recognizes the spell. It is a crowd control technique used by mages to temporarily immobilize enemies. A familiar beastkin archmage appears and orders everyone to stop fighting. The young man instantly realizes she cast the spell. Knowing the restraint will eventually disappear on its own, he decides to stay in character and loudly threatens to tear out her tongue and jaw. The Inquisitor cannot understand why the archmage is protecting their supposed enemy. Meanwhile, dark energy begins cracking the glowing chains wrapped around the Demon Knight. With a powerful roar, he forces his arms apart. The chains explode into fragments. A violent shockwave tears through the inn. The receptionist hides behind the counter, trembling with fear. Everyone watches in stunned silence as purple energy continues radiating from the Demon Knight's sword. The Inquisitor cannot believe what she just witnessed. An archmage's binding spell should not be breakable by brute force. Ironically, the young man is just as confused. In the original version of the game, paralysis magic was so overpowered that players constantly begged the developers to nerf it, yet somehow he shattered it with raw strength. The archmage quickly steps between both sides and explains that this is simply another misunderstanding. The furious Inquisitor argues that she personally witnessed the murder. The archmage calmly tells her to stop letting her hatred blind her. She simply asks her to look around. The Inquisitor finally notices the supposed victim crawling across the floor. The thief is very much alive. She stares in complete disbelief. The young man quietly admits to himself that he briefly considered finishing the robber off, but ultimately held back. The archmage politely asks him to explain what really happened. She acknowledges that asking favors after attacking him twice is shameless, but points out that every guest has already gathered to watch the commotion. The easiest way to calm everyone is to let the thief speak. Without hesitation, the Demon Knight points toward the crawling robber. He orders the man to stop crawling away and confess everything immediately. One threatening glance is enough. The terrified thief instantly admits that he only wanted to steal the Demon Knight's money. He explains that he saw the generous tip given to Aaron and assumed the mysterious warrior must be carrying a fortune. The Inquisitor finally realizes the truth. The entire incident was nothing more than a robbery. Relieved that the misunderstanding is finally over, the young man lets out a long sigh. Before leaving, he reminds everyone that improving the city's security would prevent incidents like this from happening again. Without waiting for another response, he walks out of the inn. As he travels through the streets, he happily remembers that all his equipment now fits inside his inventory, making traveling much easier. Then, he suddenly freezes. Thinking back carefully, he realizes the Inquisitor and the Archmage looked strangely familiar. Before he can remember where he has seen them, someone calls out behind him. The Inquisitor is running after him once again. The Demon Knight slowly turns his head, wondering what she wants this time. The red-haired Inquisitor finally catches up, breathing heavily after chasing the Demon Knight through the streets. As the young man gets a proper look at her, something suddenly clicks. The bright red hair tied into a long braid. The vivid green eyes. He immediately recognizes her. She is not an ordinary NPC. She is one of the official priest-class characters from the original Legend of Heroes. A moment later, the Archmage arrives as well. She calmly tells the young Inquisitor to think before speaking next time instead of acting on impulse. The young man studies the Archmage more carefully. She matches the original design perfectly. A slender white lioness from the Soggy tribe, one of the game's official Archmage class characters. That realization only confuses him even more. In the original game, these class characters only appeared when controlled by actual players. They were never ordinary NPCs. He immediately begins wondering whether the game is secretly forcing party members onto him. If he wanted companions, he never would have chosen the lonely demon knight in the first place. Determined to test how much freedom the game actually gives him, he slips right back into character. Looking at the pair with cold eyes, he asks whether they have forgotten the meaning of silence. Then he continues provoking them. He asks whether the words of a demon are so meaningless that they can simply ignore them. The reaction catches him completely off guard. The young inquisitor immediately drops to both knees. With her head lowered, she desperately apologizes. She says, simple words are nowhere near enough to atone for insulting the demon knight. Then she makes an unbelievable request. If an apology is insufficient, the demon knight is free to take her head as punishment. The young man freezes. Inside, he is completely horrified. Has this girl completely lost her mind? He only wants to travel alone. He is not some bloodthirsty psychopath. Unable to understand where this absurd way of thinking came from, he looks toward the Archmage. Surely she will stop this. Instead, she looks just as terrified. From her perspective, the demon knight stands before them, surrounded by an overwhelming aura of darkness, while staring at them with killing intent. She immediately steps in front of the kneeling inquisitor. Bowing respectfully, she asks the demon knight to show mercy. She explains that the young inquisitor has only recently left the temple and knows almost nothing about the outside world. If someone must be punished, she begs him to punish her instead for failing to guide her student properly. The young inquisitor immediately objects. She insists the mistake was entirely hers and refuses to let her master suffer because of her. The two begin arguing over who deserves the punishment. Watching the entire scene unfold, the young man quietly concludes that both of them are hopeless. If this keeps going, he will never escape. There is only one solution. He slowly reaches for his weapon. The demon knight draws his glowing sword. His cold voice echoes through the night. He reminds them that they were the ones who chose to accept punishment. Then he slowly walks toward the kneeling inquisitor. The atmosphere becomes suffocating. The young inquisitor shuts her eyes tightly, convinced her life is about to end. The demon knight swings. The blade flashes past her neck with perfect precision. For a split second, nobody moves. Then, something quietly falls onto the ground. Not a head. Only the inquisitor's long red braid. She instinctively grabs her neck. Still alive. Completely confused, she cannot understand why the demon knight spared her. Inside, however, the young man quietly congratulates himself. He found the perfect solution. He protected her without breaking character. Then another thought crosses his mind. Back during the game's opening tragedy, his younger sister was around the same age. She also had long hair. Without realizing it, that memory influenced his decision. The Archmage finally lets out the breath she had been holding. Even the Inquisitor cannot believe she has truly been spared. Looking at the shortened hairstyle, the demon knight calmly tells her to remember this haircut whenever she feels tempted to speak carelessly again. He turns his back before delivering one final warning. The next time they meet, her head may not be so fortunate. The Inquisitor tries to call after him. The demon knight simply keeps walking. Inside, the young man smiles to himself. As far as he is concerned, he just saved the poor girl from the classic hairstyle that always attracts tragedy in stories. Knowing these strangely realistic NPCs, he suspects they will probably cross paths again anyway. Humming happily to himself, he disappears into the darkness, wondering what ridiculous event the game will throw at him next. The Inquisitor quietly watches the mysterious warrior vanish into the night. After a long silence, she turns toward the Archmage. She recalls her master's explanation that the demon knight carries a demon inside his own body. The Archmage confirms it. The young Inquisitor clenches her fists. She imagines how much suffering that man must have endured to master such terrifying power without losing himself. The hatred required to survive something like that must be unimaginable. The Archmage quietly agrees. Despite having every reason to seek revenge against the world, the demon knight chose mercy instead. She explains that what they witnessed tonight was true tolerance. It was precisely that incredible strength of heart that allowed him to suppress the demon rather than become its slave. The young inquisitor repeats those words to herself. Strength of heart. Perhaps that is what genuine strength truly means. Picking up the severed braid from the ground, she quietly admits that she still has countless lessons to learn outside the temple. The Archmage gently reassures her that everyone starts somewhere. Suddenly, the young inquisitor's eyes widen. She raises the cut braid high into the air. With overwhelming determination burning in her eyes, she loudly declares that they absolutely must recruit the Demon Knight for their journey. The exhausted Archmage simply sighs toward the heavens, silently praying for patience. Far away, hidden within the darkness, another system notification quietly appears. Time remaining until test completion, approximately 2 days. The next morning, the peaceful medieval city finally enjoys a quiet sunrise. Inside a nearby inn, customers casually enjoy breakfast while chatting around wooden tables. Among them sits the Demon Knight. Still wearing his usual cold expression, he calmly cuts into a perfectly cooked steak. Then he looks up. Standing directly in front of him are the red-haired Inquisitor and the white lioness Archmage. For a brief moment, the young man imagines a wholesome scene where the two simply came to check whether he slept well. Reality quickly ruins that fantasy. Keeping up his dark persona, he sharply asks whether they have suddenly gone deaf. Inside, however, he reminds himself not to flip the table because wasting perfectly good food would be a crime. The Archmage politely asks him to hear them out, promising that listening will cost him nothing. The Demon Knight immediately stands. Without the slightest hesitation, he tells them their business is not even worth hearing. Simply seeing them has already wasted enough of his time. The blunt rejection makes the young Inquisitor blush bright red. She nervously stammers for several seconds before suddenly blurting out her true reason for coming. She loudly announces to the entire inn that she wishes to learn from his tolerance. The room instantly falls silent. The Inquisitor herself freezes in embarrassment after realizing she just shouted that in front of everyone. The young man stands completely motionless. He begins questioning whether he somehow broke the game's story after rejecting the main plot so many times. The Inquisitor gathers her courage and continues. She explains that the temple taught her to live with compassion and humility. Instead, she allowed arrogance and prejudice to control her actions. Looking directly at the Demon Knight, she says he forgave her despite every insult she threw at him. To her, that kindness showed the path she should truly follow. The more she praises him, the more uncomfortable the young man becomes. Inside, he is panicking. He feels like he has just been run over by the unstoppable truck of blind admiration. The worst part is that the Inquisitor perfectly matches one of his favorite characters from the original game. For a split second, he even imagines gently patting her on the head. He immediately suppresses the thought. No matter how adorable she acts, he refuses to break character. Seeing only silence from the Demon Knight, the Inquisitor begins shrinking back. She worries she has once again offended him. Watching her lose confidence almost breaks the young man's heart. It takes every ounce of self-control he has not to smile. After taking a deep breath, he finally responds. Coldly, he tells her that if ruining his mood was their objective, then it was certainly an interesting attempt. He even remarks that meeting someone so determined to throw away her own life is a refreshing experience. Before the conversation can spiral any further, the Archmage suddenly interrupts. She asks him a single question. If defeating the Demon King required it, would he still raise his sword alongside them? The moment the words, "a Demon King," leave her mouth, the atmosphere changes completely. The Demon Knight instinctively grips the hilt of his sword. Dark energy quietly begins gathering around him. In a low voice, he asks exactly what she means. Both women immediately tense up. To them, the sudden change is terrifying. They interpret his reaction very differently. The overwhelming hatred in his eyes must come from years of suffering at the hands of demons. Now that they have spoken the Demon King's name, they become convinced that even the smallest lie could cost them their lives. Despite her fear, the Inquisitor refuses to retreat. She meets his gaze head-on. If she lies before this man, then she believes she deserves whatever punishment follows. Meanwhile, the young man is celebrating inside his own head. The main storyline has already appeared. He cannot believe the game introduced the Demon King this early. This is exactly the kind of plot progression he had been hoping for. Recalling everything he knows from the original game, he remembers that Inquisitors serve as the Church's elite judges. They travel the world carrying out its most dangerous missions. The Archmage begins explaining why someone so young left the temple. Everything started with a divine revelation. The young Inquisitor quietly explains that, one day, she received a sacred message directly from God. The revelation declared that she was destined to defeat the Demon King. Unfortunately, she could never accomplish that mission alone. She would first have to gather powerful companions capable of standing beside her. That prophecy is what led her to recruit the Archmage. Together, they began searching for allies. The Archmage admits that this is exactly why they returned to find the Demon Knight, despite everything that happened between them. Standing quietly beside her, the Inquisitor nervously wonders whether everything will be all right. The young man nearly grinds his teeth trying not to laugh. Inside, he cannot help thinking that the innocent girl was recruited into this journey almost too easily. To him, she resembles an adorable little dumpling who somehow wandered into the world's greatest adventure. Then, another question suddenly bothers him. Something is wrong. In the original game, the player was supposed to receive the divine revelation, not her. He begins wondering whether the remake completely rewrote the main story and turned the Inquisitor into the true heroine instead. Unable to endure the awkward silence any longer, the Archmage finally makes their request. She asks the Demon Knight to join them in their mission to defeat Satan. At that exact moment, a new system window appears. Main quest unlocked. The mission before him is unmistakably the central storyline of the game. The Archmage explains that she investigated his background before seeking him out. According to the guild, he is a mercenary who never retreats from demons. If they can defeat Satan once and for all, every demon across the land will disappear forever. Listening quietly, the young man realizes the prophecy truly revolves around the Inquisitor. She is destined to become the world's chosen heroine. Trying to reassure him, the Inquisitor promises that if he doubts the revelation, they can travel to the nearest holy temple. Any temple can verify that she genuinely bears the title of the chosen heroine. The Archmage finishes speaking. The two women stand side by side. Both silently wait for the Demon Knight. Maintaining his cold and mysterious demeanor, the Demon Knight lets the silence linger before finally giving his answer. With an intimidating stare, he warns the two women that for their own sake, every word they told him had better be the truth. A system notification immediately appears. The priestess and the Archmage have joined your party. Main quest accepted. Defeat the Demon King. With that, the true adventure finally begins. Not long afterward, a carriage rolls through the stone streets of Tatara under the warm morning sun. Having accepted the main quest, the trio leaves the bustling trading post behind and begins their journey. Along the road, countless villagers try to stop them with requests for help, offering rewards and optional quests. The young man ignores every single one. His priority is the main story, and his Demon Knight would never waste time on random errands. As the carriage continues through the countryside, something starts bothering him. The priestess keeps staring at him, not angrily, not nervously. She simply watches him with the happiest smile imaginable. The constant attention makes him increasingly uncomfortable. Inside, he cannot understand what is happening. So far, he has done nothing except insult her, threaten her, and treat her as coldly as possible. If the game really had an affection system, her opinion of him should be at rock bottom. He even remembers warning both of them not to expect him to act like a teammate. Then another possibility occurs to him. Maybe early game companions simply start with high affection by default. Looking across the carriage, he notices the priestess sitting quietly with perfect posture. With her new short haircut, she somehow looks even more adorable. Inside his head, he immediately gives her a nickname, his little kimchi dumpling. The more he looks at her innocent smile, the harder it becomes to maintain his role. To his own surprise, he starts feeling less like a teammate, and more like a proud father watching over his daughter. Before the silence grows awkward, the Archmage decides to speak. She politely asks whether he has no questions about the divine revelation or the destination of their journey. The young man already knows there is no point asking. The game will reveal the next objective once they arrive anyway. Still committed to his role, he coldly answers that if the prophecy turns out to be a lie, he will simply kill them. Otherwise, none of it matters to him. He only asks one practical question. If they expect him to fight, they should at least warn him about the dangers ahead. The Archmage smiles slightly. She remarks that his attitude almost makes it sound like he trusts them, or perhaps he simply does not care. As the carriage enters a dense forest, she finally explains their destination. A holy temple has requested assistance after reports of demonic activity nearby. The priestess happily adds that helping those in need is the duty of every servant of God and another step toward defeating the Demon King. The Demon Knight immediately cuts her off. He has absolutely no interest in the church's ideals. Instead, he asks the only questions that matter. What kind of demon are they hunting, and how many are there? The priestess awkwardly admits they do not know yet. They only received reports of sightings and must gather information once they reach the temple. The answer immediately irritates him. He cannot believe they accepted a mission without knowing anything about the enemy. Just then, another notification appears. Side quest: investigate the evil lurking in the village. The young man immediately realizes this is not part of the main campaign. Still, a quest is a quest. As long as it moves the game forward, he has no reason to refuse. Checking the remaining time on his trial period, he notices only a day and a half remains. The painfully slow carriage is wasting precious hours. With nothing better to do, he leans back, closes his eyes, and decides to sleep until they arrive. He simply tells himself that the two women will wake him once they reach the temple. As he sleeps peacefully, the priestess quietly watches him. A warm smile spreads across her face. The story briefly flashes back to the previous night. Inside her room, the priestess kneels alone in prayer. A gentle knock interrupts her. The Archmage enters after receiving permission. Her expression is unusually serious. She asks whether the priestess truly understands how recklessly she offered her own life to the Demon Knight. If he had shown even a little less mercy, everything could have ended in tragedy. The young priestess sadly admits she acted without thinking. Then, she quietly asks something in return. Would she not have made an even greater mistake by killing an innocent man? She recalls one of the church's sacred teachings. Justice is only justified violence and must always be used with great caution. Hearing those words, the Archmage respectfully lowers her head. The priestess continues reflecting on her actions. If the Demon Knight had died because of her ignorance, countless innocent people might have suffered in the future. She cannot understand how someone who failed to grasp God's teachings deserves to become the chosen heroine. Yet the Demon Knight showed mercy. He gave her another chance. Instead of seeing him as a cursed warrior, she begins viewing him as someone sent by God himself. Perhaps he is actually a holy apostle meant to guide her. Joining her hands together, she quietly prays that God grants her mysterious savior a peaceful night's rest. The story returns to the present. The carriage continues traveling beneath a brilliant blue sky until evening finally arrives. After what feels like forever, the group reaches the village where the great holy temple stands. The young man immediately checks the calendar. 3 full in-game days have passed. He nearly loses his mind. He cannot believe he spent real money on full immersion, only to spend hours trapped inside a slow-moving carriage. Silently declaring the game complete garbage, he decides to finish this quest as quickly as possible. Before either woman can react, he steps off the carriage and walks straight toward the temple. The priestess happily comments that the long journey is finally over. Then she realizes something. The Demon Knight is already halfway to the entrance. Panicking, she runs after him, begging him to wait so they can enter together. Far behind them, the Archmage slowly follows while grumbling that energetic youngsters are exhausting. As she walks, an uneasy feeling settles over her. Something is wrong. Black crows suddenly burst into the night sky. The ancient temple stands silently atop the hill, surrounded by an unsettling darkness. Moments later, the Demon Knight pushes open the massive gates and confidently walks through the stone corridors. Without warning, armored temple guards rush from every direction. Glowing swords point directly at him. One of the temple knights shouts in alarm. The newcomer is a dangerous demon. The moment the temple knight calls the Demon Knight a demon, more guards come rushing in from every direction with glowing weapons drawn. Before anyone can attack, the priestess immediately steps in front of him. Activating the holy mark on her hand, she orders every guard to lower their weapons at once. The captain freezes. He stares at the glowing symbol in disbelief. That mark can only belong to the chosen heroine. Without hesitation, the priestess declares under her own name that the demon knight is not a servant of evil. He is merely another victim of the demons. The guards begin whispering among themselves. Every instinct tells them the mysterious warrior carries an overwhelming evil presence, yet the chosen heroine herself is defending him. Unable to decide what to do, they hesitate. Then the archmage steps forward. She slams the end of her glowing staff against the stone floor. A brilliant wave of blue mana spreads throughout the cathedral. Her commanding voice echoes through the entrance hall. She asks whether the guards failed to hear the heroine's direct order. Silence instantly fills the room. The captain immediately bows his head. Accepting the authority of both women, he orders every knight to lower their swords and spears without another word. After apologizing for the misunderstanding, he politely offers to escort the group deeper into the cathedral. The archmage quietly apologizes for the misunderstanding and asks the demon knight for a little patience. He calmly replies that if they truly had hostile intentions, they would already be dead. Inside, however, the young man is having the time of his life. He absolutely loves misunderstandings like this. The NPCs keep turning every simple situation into dramatic scenes. Following the guards through the enormous cathedral, he cannot help admiring the stunning candlelit corridors. The game feels unbelievably realistic, almost too realistic. Even his own body is beginning to feel mentally exhausted. He decides to gather whatever information he needs from the bishop as quickly as possible and leave. After hearing the group's report, the bishop calmly announces that they have learned enough for now. He suggests everyone retire to the guest rooms prepared for them. The young man immediately sees through it. This is obviously their polite way of keeping him locked inside the temple. Already tired of dealing with suspicious NPCs, he decides he has had enough. Without any hesitation, he refuses. He bluntly states that he would rather sleep on bare dirt than inside a nest of hypocrites. Almost simultaneously, his quest updates. A new objective appears: investigate the demon. Without waiting another second, the demon knight turns around and walks straight toward the exit. The priestess panics. She runs after him and grabs his armored arm. His reaction is instant. He violently pulls free before fixing her with an icy glare. He orders her never to touch him again. Startled by his response, the priestess immediately lowers her head and apologizes. The archmage catches up and asks why he is in such a hurry. He answers as though the question itself is ridiculous. He is going to kill the demon. Inside, however, he is celebrating. By leaving early, he just skipped what was probably another long dialogue sequence. Even after being rejected again, the priestess insists she will accompany him. The archmage sighs, slightly embarrassed by the girl's stubborn determination. In the end, she decides they might as well travel together. The bishop can only watch the three of them leave. Before departing, the archmage politely thanks him for his hospitality. She explains that the demon knight simply cannot rest while knowing a demon is nearby. The priestess quickly adds that they will accompany him. High above the temple, a mysterious crow silently watches everything through a window. Moments later, dozens of black crows take flight into the moonlit sky before disappearing toward the nearby forest. The young man quietly accepts that the two women are apparently going to follow him no matter what. As they walk through the village, the archmage suggests searching for witnesses first. The demon knight immediately refuses. He assumes she already knows the answer and is simply testing him. The priestess eagerly asks for the opinion of the world's greatest demon hunter. Looking at her serious expression, he cannot help finding her strangely adorable. He jokingly remarks that it is hard to believe she is supposed to be the chosen heroine. She immediately becomes flustered. She can tolerate personal insults, but questioning God's choice is something she absolutely refuses to accept. Smiling to himself, the demon knight finally gives his answer. The creature they are hunting is a jogger. The revelation surprises both women. Based on the monster's habits, they conclude it should be hiding somewhere near a cemetery because of the foul stench surrounding it. The priestess sincerely praises his knowledge while quietly feeling inferior beside him. Watching her admire him so openly, The young man once again struggles not to smile. He really is starting to feel like a proud father. At the same time, he remembers this quest from the original game. The jogger incident eventually corrupted the entire temple. Now he cannot help wondering how the remake changed that storyline. Just then, the priestess suddenly stops walking. She quietly sniffs the air. Her expression immediately changes. The strange smell is close, very close. Instead of coming from the cemetery, it is coming from the residential district. The demon knight immediately grabs the glowing lantern hanging from his belt. He raises it toward a narrow alley hidden by darkness. The light slowly reveals a motionless figure lying on the ground. The priestess gasps in horror. Whatever they have just discovered changes everything. The glowing lantern casts long shadows across the narrow alley as the group cautiously approaches. Lying motionless on the cold stone ground is the body of a man. The priestess immediately gasps in horror and quietly calls upon God. The archmage quickly says she will summon the temple guards, and the priestess immediately agrees. Meanwhile, the demon knight focuses on something else: the overwhelming stench. The smell tells him the monster is still nearby. Silently, he kneels beside the victim and studies the man's face. After a brief moment, he quietly closes the man's eyes. In a calm, solemn voice, he admits they arrived too late to save him. Then he promises that he will personally hunt down the creature responsible. The priestess folds her hands together and begins praying for the man's soul. Watching the scene unfold, the young man quietly admits to himself that although he does not believe in God, moments like this make the game feel incredibly immersive. The archmage soon returns with news. Temple guards are already on their way to recover the body. She also confirms that the foul smell is still fresh. The monster cannot have gone far. Without wasting another moment, she activates a powerful tracking spell. Blue magical energy spreads across the ground before forming a glowing trail. Before she can even finish explaining the spell, the demon knight suddenly dashes forward. The archmage simply smiles and tells the priestess to hurry after him. The priestess immediately follows while continuously purifying the lingering demonic energy around them. Looking back, the young man realizes her holy magic is lighting the path behind him. For someone who constantly insists on traveling alone, he has to admit one thing: having teammates is surprisingly convenient. The chase continues through the dark streets at full speed. Suddenly, the demon knight slides to a stop. The glowing magical trail ends directly in front of a solid stone wall. The priestess stares in confusion. The archmage quickly realizes what happened. The creature somehow passed straight through the wall. She suggests climbing onto higher ground to continue tracking it. The young man agrees, just not in the way she expected. The moment she notices what he is planning, she tries to stop him. Too late. The demon knight launches himself into the air. His foot strikes the wall before he effortlessly vaults upward. With incredible agility, he scales the side of the building before grabbing the edge of the rooftop with his armored hand. A single pull lifts him onto the roof. He lands gracefully beneath the moonlit sky as the cool night breeze sweeps across the rooftops. Below, the priestess looks up with sparkling eyes and excitedly calls out to him. The archmage sighs, complaining about how reckless he is. Neither of them can see his face. Hidden from view, the young man is grinning like a child. He cannot believe he just pulled off a parkour move without using a single skill. The realistic wind, the incredible jump, the freedom. This game is amazing. After quietly praising his own athletic talent, he quickly refocuses. The tracking spell will not last forever. He races across the rooftops, following the glowing blue trail through the village. While sprinting between buildings, he loudly challenges the hidden demon. He asks whether it truly believed such cheap tricks could fool him. Then he coldly announces that its final hour has arrived. With a dramatic leap, he launches himself from the rooftop toward his target. Unable to resist getting into character, he bursts into loud, theatrical laughter during the descent. He honestly cannot remember the last time he enjoyed a game this much. Landing heavily on the ground, he raises his sword. Declaring glory to the game's creators, he points the blade toward the creature before him. He calmly announces that this is vengeance for the innocent victim. Then he stares directly into a pair of glowing red eyes. The game of hide and seek is over. Just as he prepares to attack, something feels off. His companions are nowhere nearby. Apparently, they have not reached the distance required for the game's automatic teleport feature. Clicking his tongue, he wishes the priestess were already there to purify the overwhelming stench surrounding the area. The three-dimensional combat also makes timing his attacks much harder than he expected. While deciding whether to wait for the others, a mysterious voice suddenly calls out, "Gretchen." The young man freezes. A hooded stranger slowly steps forward. The man casually remarks that he was trying to throw that troublesome heretic off his trail before unexpectedly finding the demon knight instead. With a pleased smile, the stranger introduces himself as a demon contractor. Then he delivers an even stranger statement. The king has been searching for him. The young man is completely confused. What king? Why is this man calling him Gretchen? He desperately searches his memory but cannot recall hearing that name anywhere during the game. The contractor calmly offers his assistance if the demon knight has been captured, before inviting him to join a grand festival of destruction. The invitation makes absolutely no sense. Unable to figure out what is happening, the young man simply raises his massive sword. Under the pale moonlight, the two stand facing one another. As the battle is about to begin, only one thought echoes through the young man's mind. Did he somehow unlock a secret demon faction route by accident? For a brief moment, the young man lets his imagination run wild. He pictures an overwhelming power awakening inside his body. Ancient and forbidden knowledge floods his mind. Dark horns grow from his head. His eyes glow crimson. Massive black wings burst from his back as he transcends human limits and fully embraces the power of the demon knight. In his fantasy, he walks through flames with an enormous sword resting on his shoulder, becoming the ultimate dark warrior. Then, reality hits. He blinks. Nothing happened. The entire transformation existed only inside his own imagination. Chuckling to himself, he decides he can always explore the demon route during another playthrough. For now, he is sticking to his role as a righteous demon knight. Without another thought, he raises his sword. Breaker. Dark energy erupts from the blade as he unleashes his strongest attack. When the dust clears, he expects the enemy to be gone. Instead, the demon contractor is still standing. The hooded man survived by hiding behind the enormous jogger, using the monster as a human shield. Seeing such a cowardly tactic immediately annoys him. The contractor desperately begs for mercy after witnessing the sheer destructive power of Breaker. The demon knight slowly walks forward. His answer is simple: villains deserve no mercy. Terrified, the contractor orders the jogger to protect him once again. The armored monster steps forward, planting its massive shield between them while raising its glowing sword. The demon knight charges without hesitation. He complains that hiding behind a shield like this is pathetic. His sword crashes against the enormous shield, but the monster successfully blocks the attack. The young man clicks his tongue. He already hated fighting monsters that felt more like blobs than living enemies. Now the contractor has strengthened it with support magic, making the fight even more annoying. Instead of wasting time, he decides to eliminate the summoner first. Then an idea suddenly crosses his mind. He remembers something unusual about his breaker skill. The energy never disappeared after the first attack. It remained stored inside the sword. If that was true, then he could release it a second time. Grinning, he swings again. The blade slams into the giant shield. An instant later, Breaker explodes. A violent blast of crimson flames engulfs the entire alley. The massive jogger is consumed by the explosion before collapsing into pieces. Almost immediately, the quest log updates. The obstacle is finally gone. Brushing the dust from his armor, the demon knight points his sword directly at the trembling contractor. He quietly announces that judgment has arrived. The terrified man bursts into tears. He desperately insists he never intended to interfere with the Merchant Guild's affairs. Hearing that, the young man finally realizes why this quest forced him to run around the city for so long. The contractor completely loses his composure. Instead of fearing the Demon King, he starts fearing the Demon Knight even more. In total desperation, he begs the young man to simply hand over his own head to the Demon King. At that exact moment, the priestess and the archmage finally arrive. The contractor looks toward them and panics. Seeing temple officials appear, he realizes his escape is impossible. Inside, the young man quietly celebrates. Perfect timing. Now he does not have to break character by killing the man himself. The priestess immediately points her holy weapon toward the contractor. She demands to know whether he truly sold his soul to demons. Before he can answer, she casts a brilliant holy light. The sudden flash blinds the contractor. Unable to understand what is happening, he screams in confusion. He cannot understand why the demon knight betrayed them. Weren't they supposed to be on the same side? The young man silently admits he has absolutely no idea what the man is talking about either. He still has no clue who Gretchen is, or why demons seem to recognize him. At this point, he decides the game's story will explain everything eventually. Until then, he will simply stay in character. A crimson aura once again surrounds his greatsword. The demon knight slowly raises the blade. With a cold voice, he declares that vermin have no right to ask questions. Then he swings. The contractor's only salvation is defeat. As dawn finally breaks, sunlight shines across the magnificent holy temple. The captured demon contractor is escorted inside under heavy guard while bound by glowing chains of holy light. Watching from a distance, the demon knight quietly reflects on what actually happened. Just before he delivered the finishing blow, the contractor had begged for his life. At the last second, the archmage intervened. Using powerful holy magic, she restrained the villain before he could be killed. At the time, the young man was genuinely irritated. He even asked whether she was deliberately getting in his way. The archmage calmly explained her reasoning. Keeping the contractor alive would provide far greater benefits than killing him. Someone powerful had summoned the jogger. Finding that mastermind mattered far more than satisfying temporary anger, the young man understood her point. Still, he mainly wanted the final hit because he thought it might affect the game's reward system. Looking back now, he realizes the entire capture sequence was probably scripted from the beginning. The remake really does introduce new mechanics that make every encounter feel fresh. Just as he finishes thinking that, something feels wrong, his body suddenly grows weaker. One red warning window appears. Then another, and another. The system repeatedly flashes urgent notifications. His health is continuously dropping. Simply standing inside the temple grounds is slowly draining his life. Although he wants to watch the temple interrogate the captured demon contractor, the demon knight has no choice but to leave. The deeper he walks into the sanctuary, the more red warning windows appear before his eyes. His health continues dropping. Eventually, the system forces him to retreat. Stepping back outside, he begins wondering whether the holy barrier is reacting to the demon sealed inside his arm. The situation feels completely unfair. The game gives him a holy main quest, then immediately punishes him for entering holy ground. Instead of getting frustrated, however, he smiles. To him, overcoming ridiculous obstacles like this is exactly what makes role-playing fun. A true veteran player adapts to every challenge. As he leaves the temple grounds, another thought crosses his mind. Will he really have to travel with these two companions until the end of the main story? Surprisingly, without them around, everything suddenly feels a little lonely. Just then, the quest log updates. His next objective is simple. Speak with the bishop after the interrogation is complete. While wondering how to kill time until then, he suddenly hears someone calling his name. The priestess comes running toward him with her usual boundless enthusiasm. She eagerly asks whether she can accompany him wherever he plans to go. The young man sighs. She really does appear out of nowhere like an excited puppy. Curious, he asks why she did not remain inside the temple to observe the interrogation. She explains that the archmage told her interrogating cultists would not be good for her. The young man immediately understands. The archmage simply found an excuse to hand the girl over to him. Now she happily walks beside him while asking whether he has somewhere else to investigate. Inside, he quietly accepts that peace and quiet are no longer part of his life. The priestess then asks whether he only hunts demons after receiving information from others. He gives a simple answer. He hunts wherever the clues lead. The priestess's eyes suddenly sparkle. She treats his ordinary reply as profound wisdom and thanks him for teaching her another valuable lesson. Meanwhile, the young man is only thinking about gaining experience points. He cannot help comparing her to one of those tutorial NPCs that constantly praise the player. It is honestly adorable. She chatters non-stop like a cheerful little steamed bun. As cute as she is, even his introverted side starts feeling overwhelmed by her endless energy. Looking around, the priestess notices the sun has already begun setting. She points out that gathering information might become difficult. The Demon Knight immediately states their next destination: the Adventurers Guild. The priestess is amazed. She assumes there must be demon-related requests waiting there. The young man silently admits that his role-playing habit has completely taken over. He cannot even speak normally anymore. His own character concept forces him to stay cold towards someone he genuinely likes. Before long, the pair arrives at the city's Grand Adventurers Guild. A large metal sign decorated with a winged boot hangs proudly above the entrance. The Archmage praises his experience as an adventurer. She remarks that true wisdom is gained by traveling the world rather than studying inside a tower. Ignoring the compliments, the Demon Knight walks straight to the reception desk. He asks for every available quest related to demons. After checking his adventurer badge, the receptionist apologizes. Demon requests are extremely rare. However, there is one suspicious case. The young man immediately asks to read the report himself. The receptionist pauses in surprise. He never expected someone like the Demon Knight to casually request paperwork. After handing over the document, he explains that the reward is an incredible 500,000 gold. The temple accepted responsibility for the investigation. The Demon Knight calmly informs him that the case has already been solved. The Archmage immediately realizes what happened. The temple is about to receive the entire reward for a quest the Demon Knight completed. Rather than arguing about the money, she asks the receptionist a different question. Have there been any reports of disappearances or people suddenly becoming violent? The priestess presents both of their official badges and politely explains that even rumors would be useful. The receptionist nervously studies the badges. Only then does he realize he is speaking to both an inquisitor and the Grand Sage of the Magic Tower. His expression immediately changes. Desperate not to disappoint such important visitors, he desperately searches his memory. Watching the poor night shift employee panic, the young man almost feels sorry for him. After adjusting his glasses, the receptionist finally remembers something unusual. Recently, the number of pickpockets has dropped dramatically. There are also far fewer beggars wandering the streets. At first, he assumed some strange illness had spread through the slums. He cannot confirm anything, but hopes the information helps. Before anyone else can react, the priestess slams both hands onto the counter. The loud impact startles the receptionist. Filled with righteous anger, she asks whether there are truly people who have abandoned God's grace so completely. The young man quietly watches her passionate outburst. Inside, he simply wishes his little steamed bun would calm down. To him, this is obviously another quest hook. There is almost certainly another demon hiding somewhere nearby. The frightened receptionist nervously asks whether a demon could truly be lurking inside the city. The Archmage calmly replies that the possibility cannot be ignored. She asks him to immediately notify the temple if he hears anything else. The young man silently decides the exhausted employee has suffered enough for one night. Thankfully, he is only an NPC. Turning toward the exit, the priestess asks where they are going next. Without hesitation, the Demon Knight answers: the slums. If the beggars have disappeared, that is exactly where they need to investigate. The Archmage immediately agrees. Inspired once again, the priestess eagerly rushes after him, determined to learn everything she can from the mysterious warrior. As they travel, the young man reflects on the strange health drain inside the temple. It feels less like a random mechanic, and more like foreshadowing. He can already imagine the future. One day, a misunderstanding will force him into direct conflict with the temple itself. He pictures the priestess standing before him with her holy weapon drawn, shouting at him as an enemy. The thought genuinely makes him feel a little sad. He knows the confrontation would make for an incredible story. Even so, he cannot help worrying about how heartbroken she would be. Shaking the thought away, he reminds himself to simply enjoy whatever happens next. Just then, another notification appears. Quest updated, Grim Omen. Objective: speak with the locals. The priestess catches up and cheerfully walks beside him through the narrow streets. She curiously asks whether he already knows where the slum district is located. The young man simply grumbles. There is no need to explain something so obvious. He only has to follow the red dots on his minimap. The priestess, however, mistakes his silence for incredible wisdom once again. A system message quietly explains that hostile humanoids and monsters appear as red markers on the map. Looking toward the dark streets ahead, the Demon Knight senses the next chapter of their journey is about to begin. He already has a bad feeling. A place like the slums is the worst possible setting for someone trying to maintain the image of a cold and mysterious night. Watching the shadows stretch across the alleys, he silently hopes nothing ridiculous happens. The moment they step into the slums, everything immediately goes wrong. The local residents are the least of their problems. Standing before an angry crowd, the priestess suddenly draws her weapon. With righteous fury burning in her eyes, she orders a frightened man to swear before God and tell the truth. Then she demands to know one thing. Was it really the temple that took them? A short while earlier, the group carefully makes its way through the narrow alleys of the city's slums. Locals silently watch them from dark corners, their suspicious eyes following every step. The Archmage quietly comments that something about the atmosphere feels wrong. Meanwhile, the young man casually checks his minimap. Red dots are scattered everywhere. He smiles to himself. The event is about to begin. Right on cue, a young girl suddenly crashes into him before immediately trying to run away. She apologizes in a hurry, believing she escaped without anyone noticing. Unfortunately for her, the Demon Knight catches her wrist before she can take another step. Still holding his coin pouch, he calmly praises the little thief's courage. Then, in his usual cold tone, he warns that if she keeps resisting, he will simply cut off the hands she used to steal. Inside, however, he is celebrating. He predicted the event perfectly. Games always guide players toward important NPCs, if there are no quest markers. Then the quest targets come looking for you instead. He even admits to himself that he intentionally left his coin pouch exposed as bait. The trap worked exactly as planned. The frightened thief glares back at him while trying to pull free. Before she can speak, the priestess steps forward. Her expression becomes terrifyingly serious. She immediately begins lecturing the girl, declaring that thieves deserve severe punishment according to divine law. The Archmage gently places a hand on the priestess's shoulder. She calmly reminds her that justice should never be applied blindly. Discipline is important, but mercy is equally important. The priestess insists that the girl committed a serious crime right before their eyes. The Archmage simply smiles. She reminds her that the Demon Knight himself already demonstrated true mercy. If the priestess truly wishes to learn from him, then she should start by following that example instead of acting on impulse. Although she still looks unconvinced, the priestess reluctantly agrees. Watching the exchange, the young man cannot help wondering what kind of saint these two have convinced themselves he really is. Growing impatient, the little thief shouts at him. She demands to know what he actually wants. The Demon Knight gives a simple answer. Take them to the leader of the pickpockets. That decision eventually brings the entire group before the self-proclaimed beggar king of the slums. Back in the present, the priestess immediately begins questioning the frightened man. Kneeling on the ground, he desperately swears that the temple is responsible for taking people away. Confused, he asks whether the inquisitors were not the ones carrying out rehabilitation. The accusation instantly enrages the priestess. She raises her holy weapon and declares such blasphemy completely unforgivable. According to church law, rehabilitation can only occur during officially approved periods. The Archmage immediately interrupts. That detail is no longer important. The priestess still wants to argue. Meanwhile, the young man quietly reaches a shocking conclusion. This is not just another side quest. This is part of the main storyline. He finally understands why the Holy Temple plays such a major role in the Demon Knight route. Ignoring the argument beside him, he demands the Beggar King explain everything he knows. The frightened man reveals the disappearances started roughly 1 month ago. People vanished one after another, quietly, without attracting attention. He admits the situation almost resembles human trafficking. Realizing what he just implied, he immediately panics. He hurriedly insists it was only a figure of speech. Surely the temple would never commit something so horrible. The priestess is already furious. She demands an explanation for those accusations. The archmage ignores the argument and focuses on the investigation. Stepping closer, she asks one important question. How often did these disappearances occur? The beggar king nervously answers. 2 or 3 times every week. Almost always during the Inquisitor's patrols. The situation became so dangerous that he warned everyone living in the slums to stay indoors whenever temple patrols appeared. The archmage's expression suddenly darkens. A horrifying possibility enters her mind. Could they be offering human sacrifices to demons? The priestess immediately rejects the idea. She loudly insists the Holy Order would never commit such evil. The demon knight quietly shakes his head. He tells her she is being far too naive. Reality does not care what people choose to believe. Things happen regardless. Inside, however, the young man is secretly enjoying the scene. Watching the priestess confront difficult truths feels like excellent character development. The demon knight asks one final question. Where exactly were the missing people taken? The beggar king lowers his head. He admits he only hears rumors from the street children. He does not know the exact location. Suddenly, the captured little thief speaks up. She confidently announces that she knows someone who might have the answer. The archmage looks at her in surprise. She points out that the girl easily could have escaped long ago. The thief simply shrugs. If demons are truly involved, then the situation is everyone's problem. The demon knight slowly walks toward her. His intimidating gaze makes the girl visibly nervous. Inside, though, he cannot help thinking she is surprisingly brave, almost cute. Quickly forcing himself back into character, he simply gives one order. Lead the way. The group follows the young thief deeper into the city's darkest streets. Abandoned buildings line the narrow roads, while crows circle overhead beneath the night sky. Wild animals rummage through piles of garbage as danger seems to hide behind every corner. The thief carefully guides everyone through the maze of alleys. Eventually, she stops. From this point onward, she warns, they are entering the truly dangerous part of the slums. If they want information, everyone must keep their weapons sheathed. People living here despise anyone connected to the temple. The priestess immediately complains. She has no desire to associate with criminals. The archmage quickly scolds her for making the situation worse. The thief grumbles that she is only helping because the whole situation feels dangerous and she wants to avoid even bigger problems. Watching the two girls bicker, the young man quietly smiles to himself. They remind him of two grumpy little pets arguing over nothing. For a brief moment, he even wonders whether the thief is one of those classic tsundere characters. Then another thought crosses his mind. Maybe comparing people to cats is a bad idea in a world filled with beast folk. As the group continues through the darkness, an unknown figure silently watches them from a nearby rooftop. Hidden beneath a white hood, the mysterious observer prepares to make a move. At that exact moment, the demon knight's system suddenly flashes bright red. Hostile targets detected nearby. The moment the system warns him about nearby enemies, the demon knight immediately draws his glowing sword. The little thief spins around in panic. She angrily reminds him that she specifically told everyone to keep their weapons sheathed. The demon knight calmly replies that she should save that advice for someone else. His eyes slowly shift toward a nearby rooftop. Someone is hiding there. The hooded figure smiles. He admits the demon knight noticed his presence far faster than expected. Without another word, the stranger leaps from the rooftop. He lands gracefully in front of the group with incredible agility. The mysterious man carefully studies the demon knight, his two-toned hair, the eye patch, the cursed armored arm. After seeing those features, he immediately recognizes him. Smiling confidently, the stranger greets him by his title, the Demon Knight. The priestess looks completely confused. She asks whether the two already know each other. The young man quietly studies the newcomer. He searches his memory, trying to remember the character from the original game. Nothing comes to mind. Someone this smug should have been unforgettable. The hooded man explains that they have never met. He simply knows the Demon Knight's reputation. According to him, the mysterious warrior has already become something of a celebrity. The Demon Knight coldly asks what he wants. Then he sarcastically wonders whether the man expects a medal for recognizing him. The stranger laughs. Ironically, he was about to ask the exact same question. His expression suddenly becomes serious. Looking at the priestess and the archmage, he demands to know why the demon knight brought servants of God into the slums. He even accuses them of helping the temple abduct more innocent people. Before anyone else can answer, the little thief steps forward. She quickly explains that the group came to investigate the disappearances. The young man barely hears the conversation. His attention is somewhere else entirely, a real cat guy. Now the world is making things even more confusing. Finishing her explanation, the thief reveals that they suspect demons are responsible. The hooded man immediately freezes. His expression hardens. He quietly asks whether they truly believe demons kidnapped the missing children. The thought alone fills him with dread. Then another possibility enters his mind. Could the temple be involved? The demon knight calmly answers that discovering the truth is exactly why they came. The archmage explains that they arrived from outside the city and have no connection to the local temple. She politely asks for his cooperation so they can stop more innocent people from disappearing. The green-haired beastman quietly thinks for a moment. His tail twitches restlessly as he weighs their words. Finally, he sighs. Snapping his fingers, he signals someone hiding nearby. Another figure immediately emerges from the shadows. The hooded man orders his subordinate to report everything they have learned. The subordinate looks surprised. He asks whether his leader intends to accompany the group personally. The beastman confidently replies that he can handle himself. Without another question, the subordinate disappears into the darkness. A system notification quietly appears. The young man immediately begins wondering whether this mysterious guide belongs to a thieves' guild. Something about him feels strangely familiar. Unfortunately, the darkness makes it impossible to identify him properly. Without waiting any longer, the hooded guide suddenly dashes forward. The priestess immediately complains that he could at least wait for everyone else. The demon knight wastes no time and runs after him. The archmage lets out an exhausted sigh. She never imagined she would spend her days sprinting through city streets at her age. Even so, she casts a movement enhancement spell over the entire group. A gentle wave of magic boosts everyone's speed. While running, the young man quietly notes how scripted the entire sequence feels. This is exactly the kind of chase event RPGs love to include. Checking the remaining playtime, he silently hopes they can finish everything before his session ends. After a long pursuit, the group reaches the city's commercial district. Unlike the gloomy slums, this area is brightly lit and filled with businesses. The guide carefully signals everyone to stay low before leading them toward a quiet corner. Pointing across the street, he whispers that they have arrived. The priestess stares in disbelief. The suspected hideout is just an ordinary grocery store. The archmage immediately senses something unusual. A powerful magical barrier surrounds the building. Judging from its quality, it was cast by someone extremely skilled. The demon knight quietly praises her observation. He confirms the barrier protects both the warehouse and whatever lies beneath it. Almost simultaneously, his quest window updates. This is the correct location. The archmage explains that since the spell focuses only on concealment, breaking through it should not be difficult. The young man checks the quest details. Interestingly, there is absolutely no objective telling him to sneak inside. That makes his decision easy. He announces that he is walking through the front door. The hooded guide stares at him in disbelief. Has he completely lost his mind? Breaking in now will alert every guard inside. They still know almost nothing about the enemy. The demon knight simply shrugs. Kidnapping innocent people is a far greater crime than trespassing. Drawing his sword, he calmly tells the guide that if he is afraid, he can always stay outside. Inside, the young man admits he was simply tired of overthinking things. That was just the coolest line he could come up with. Since everyone here is an NPC anyway, they are guaranteed to follow him. The hooded guide stands speechless. He genuinely wonders whether the demon knight is always this reckless. The archmage quietly laughs. After knowing him for less than a week, she already knows the answer. The priestess confidently declares that the demon knight is a man of unwavering conviction. She proudly reveals that he captured a demon contractor just yesterday. The guide's eyes widen. The priestess assures him every word is true. Although she desperately wishes otherwise, she now believes the temple itself may be connected to these crimes. Hearing that completely changes the guide's attitude. There is no longer time for caution. The priestess even tells him to stay behind if he is frightened. His assistance until now has already been enough. The Archmage smiles proudly. She remarks how much the priestess has grown. The girl happily replies that she simply learned by watching the Demon Knight. Watching the fearless trio march toward the grocery store, the hooded guide scratches his head in frustration. They really intend to raid the place without even making a plan. After a brief sigh, he chases after them. At this rate, this mission is going to kill him. Moments later, they enter the grocery store. Vegetables and supplies are scattered all across the floor as though a struggle recently took place. The Demon Knight casually glances over his shoulder. He asks whether everyone plans on standing outside forever, without anyone even noticing. He has already defeated every guard inside. The unconscious men lie tied up across the floor. The path leading to the hidden basement is completely clear. The Demon Knight kicks open the hidden door without hesitation. Looking down the narrow staircase beyond it, he calmly announces that he found a secret underground passage. The priestess stares in amazement. Before the rest of the group even caught up, he had already defeated every guard protecting the entrance. Meanwhile, the young man is thinking about something completely different. He only wants to beat the dungeon boss before logging out. The green-haired guide finally catches up, breathing heavily. Watching the unconscious guards scattered around, he comments that the Demon Knight fights as if tomorrow does not exist. The Archmage quietly agrees. The Demon Knight simply shrugs. Anyone too frightened to continue is free to leave. Inside, however, he is actually waiting for everyone else to catch up before moving forward. The priestess immediately declares that she is not afraid. She hurries after him as he begins descending the stone staircase with slow, unwavering steps. Halfway down, the Demon Knight suddenly pauses. Something feels wrong. A strange pressure fills the underground passage. The priestess feels it too. A tingling sensation spreads through her body before her expression turns serious. An enormous amount of demonic energy is gathering below. She warns everyone that whatever is happening beneath them cannot be allowed to continue. The green-haired guide immediately agrees. Without wasting another second, the Archmage casts another speed enhancement spell over the party. The young man smiles to himself. This is his first real party battle. More importantly, he finally gets to see how realistic his companion's combat AI really is. His excitement shoots through the roof. A system notification quietly appears. Entering Sman's secret underground passage. The group races through the dark corridor until a bright light becomes visible beneath a doorway ahead. The Demon Knight reaches it first. With one powerful swing, he shatters the door into pieces. The party storms inside. The sudden attack catches several hooded cultists completely off guard. One of them screams in panic. The summoning ritual is not finished yet. Their leader curses under his breath. He immediately recognizes the priestess and the others. The intruders have arrived. The Archmage quietly prepares a spell. The Demon Knight grips his sword as crimson energy begins surrounding the blade. The priestess raises her holy weapon and boldly declares that judgment has arrived. Realizing they only need a little more time to finish the ritual, the cult leader gives a desperate order. Buy time. Stretching out his hand, he summons dark magic. Purple mist floods the room. A gigantic skull forms within the darkness before countless skeletons begin clawing their way out of the ground. The Archmage immediately asks someone to protect her while she casts. The green-haired guide volunteers without hesitation. At the same moment, the priestess charges forward. She shouts that God is with her as she rushes directly toward the enemy. The Demon Knight refuses to fall behind. Repeating his signature line about victory belonging to his blade, he bursts forward at incredible speed. His sword tears through skeleton after skeleton. He proudly declares that he will never surrender the front line of battle to anyone else. The priestess stops in complete disbelief. His speed is overwhelming. Pouting in frustration, she complains that what he just did was incredible and completely unfair. Refusing to lose, she charges into battle herself. She proudly declares that she trained as a shield-bearer for exactly this moment. Watching her fight, the young man quietly sighs. Every monster she defeats is experience he no longer gets. Still, the mission comes first. Ignoring the remaining skeletons, the Demon Knight focuses on the ritual leader. The cultist suddenly begins shouting. He prepared flesh and blood as an offering. Immediately, the young man realizes something dangerous is happening. The cult leader calls upon darkness itself. New creatures known as Draugrs begin emerging from the ritual. Pointing directly at the demon knight, the cultist screams that he will pay for his betrayal. The very first sacrifice offered to darkness will be him. A massive torrent of black smoke erupts from the summoning circle. The darkness completely swallows the demon knight. The archmage and the green-haired guide immediately panic. The priestess turns around and freezes. Unable to believe her eyes, she watches the darkness consume him. She desperately calls his name while charging forward. Brilliant holy light erupts from her weapon as she cuts through the surrounding monsters. She swears she will rescue him before anyone can reach him. The black tornado suddenly explodes. The demon knight leaps out of the darkness as if nothing happened. He lands smoothly on both feet without a single serious injury. The priestess lets out a relieved smile. She proudly says she knew he would survive. The young man calmly surveys the battlefield. Honestly, this turned out even better than expected. He slowly raises his sword. Dark energy gathers around the blade until it begins shaking violently. With one decisive swing, he drives the weapon into the ground. A colossal explosion of purple energy tears across the underground chamber. The blast completely annihilates the summoned monsters. Even the priestess has to hide behind her massive shield to withstand the shockwave. She can only stare at the demon knight in awe. The cult leader stumbles backward in terror. His entire body trembles. Looking directly at the demon knight, he whispers a single name: Gretchen. Dark energy continues pouring from the demon knight's body. The atmosphere becomes suffocating. Without saying another word, he fixes the cult leader with an icy glare. The man's courage completely breaks. Crying in terror, he realizes there is no escaping. He desperately orders every remaining skeleton to stop the demon knight. The command changes nothing. The demon knight calmly advances through the swarm, crushing every skeleton that stands in his way. The cult leader keeps begging him not to come any closer. He cries that he does not want to die. One of his remaining followers grabs his arm and warns him that running that way is suicide. The warning comes too late. The demon knight coldly condemns them all to the deepest pit of the underworld. His sword falls one final time. The remaining cultists collapse where they stand. When the dust finally settles, every enemy lies defeated across the glowing red summoning circle. Inside, the young man quietly breathes a sigh of relief. That fight was much closer than he expected. Opening the status window, he notices his health dropped during the battle. At the same time, another notification appears. Rare skill unlocked. The reward catches him completely off guard. Receiving such a powerful skill this early feels almost suspicious. A system tip immediately appears beneath it. Players who obtain overpowered abilities too soon should expect the game's difficulty to become far more brutal later on. The young man barely pays attention. Instead, he turns around to see how his party is doing. The priestess raises her glowing mace high into the air. Golden holy light erupts from the weapon as she charges forward. Determined to fulfill her own role in battle, she crushes several remaining monsters with a single devastating swing. One unlucky cultist receives the full force of her mace directly to the face. She declares that sinners must face divine judgment. Nearby, the green-haired guide glances toward the archmage. He asks how much longer they need to keep protecting her while she prepares her spell. The lioness simply smiles. She quietly replies that it is finally time to demonstrate her true strength. A massive blue magic circle suddenly forms across the ceiling. Immediately, she warns everyone to take cover. Then she calls for the complete eradication of evil. An instant later, countless torrents of brilliant blue flames rain down upon the battlefield. The remaining enemies scream as holy fire completely engulfs them. Within moments, nothing remains except drifting ash. The demon knight silently watches the destruction unfold. For a brief moment, he wonders whether he accidentally said that thought out loud. The green-haired guide crouches among the fading flames. Looking around in disbelief, he quietly remarks that some truly extraordinary people have appeared. Staring at the corpses scattered across the chamber, he wonders whether the battle has finally ended. The priestess confirms every remaining monster has been defeated. Still, she cannot hide her disappointment. None of the cultists survived to be questioned. The Demon Knight calmly places his boot on the chest of one wounded cultist. Without changing his expression, he points out that one prisoner is still alive. The wounded cultist coughs violently before glaring up at him. With his final strength, he swears that they will regret betraying their master's plans. He promises that their king will eventually make his move. Using the last bit of strength left in his body, he slowly raises one trembling hand. Pointing directly at the Demon Knight, he warns that their king is still alive. Then his arm falls lifelessly onto the blood-stained floor. Silence returns for only a second. Suddenly, the priestess screams. She desperately orders the Demon Knight to dodge. A terrifying wave of demonic energy erupts behind him. The entire underground chamber begins shaking violently. The unfinished summoning ritual has finally been completed. A massive crimson aura bursts from the ritual circle. The portal tears open. From within the darkness, a gigantic demonic creature charges straight toward the Demon Knight. Without hesitation, the priestess throws herself in front of him. Her enormous shield intercepts the monster's attack with a deafening crash. She quickly asks whether he is all right. The young man simply stares at her in silence. Inside, however, he is trying very hard not to complain. Even after lowering the game's pain settings, his back still hurts like crazy. Watching the exchange, the Demon Knight cannot hide his amazement. The defensive power of the tank class is completely absurd. Then another thought crosses his mind. Would it not have been easier to simply dodge? The green-haired guide anxiously asks whether taking the attack head-on is really safe. Turning toward the Archmage, he asks if the monster has any weaknesses. She immediately explains that its fangs contain deadly venom, just before revealing the weak point. The Demon Knight moves. His companions have already done their jobs. Now, it is the damage dealer's turn. He bursts forward at incredible speed. Launching himself into the air, he aims directly for the monster's head. At that exact moment, the Archmage finally finishes her explanation. Its head is the weak point. Already airborne, the Demon Knight raises his glowing sword. With flawless precision, he activates his destruction skill. His blade crashes directly into the top of the Knucker's skull. One overwhelming strike is all it takes. The enormous demon is split cleanly in half. Blood rains across the battlefield. The Archmage and the green-haired guide stand frozen in complete disbelief. Meanwhile, the young man simply looks around in confusion. The gigantic demon crashes lifelessly onto the stone floor. Silence fills the underground chamber. The surviving cultists can only stare in disbelief. One of them coughs up blood, unable to understand how the Demon Knight defeated such a monster with a single attack. Another desperately asks how armor as hard as steel could possibly be cut apart so effortlessly. Meanwhile, the young man is just as confused. Inside, he cannot help feeling disappointed. Boss fights are supposed to be complicated. A good game rewards players who slowly learn attack patterns and uncover hidden mechanics. No experienced gamer expects to defeat a major boss with one overpowered skill. Mentally, he starts complaining about the game developers. Surely the fight cannot be over already. Maybe the boss has another phase. Maybe it will stand back up any second. Before he can think further, something suddenly flashes toward him. Metal violently collides against metal. The surprise attack is intercepted at the last possible moment. The green-haired guide appears beside him with both daggers drawn. He tells the Demon Knight to watch his blind side. After all, the eye patch leaves one side of his vision exposed. The young man quietly admits he lost focus for a moment. His teammates' reaction speed is genuinely impressive. Now that the room is fully illuminated, he finally gets a proper look at the guide. Something clicks. That appearance, the green hair, the agile fighting style, that is the default appearance of one of the game's advanced thief classes. The hooded youth awkwardly apologizes for interfering. The Demon Knight calmly assures him there is nothing to apologize for. Inside, he even begins wondering whether recruiting a thief like him into the party might be worthwhile someday. Suddenly, the headless demon moves again. The young man immediately realizes his mistake. Cutting off its head was never enough. He finally remembers the real boss mechanic. The head is only a fake weak point. The true weakness appears only after the monster loses enough health. A system notification confirms his memory. Weak point revealed, reverse scale. Like the legendary dragons of the East, the creature possesses a single scale growing backward. Destroying that scale is the only way to truly kill it. The Demon Knight slowly walks toward the struggling monster. Its desperate resistance has lasted long enough. Originally, he wanted to finish it with a piercing technique. Unfortunately, he never invested enough skill points to learn one. Instead, he gathers dark energy around his fist. Brilliant purple power condenses into a single point. Then, he strikes. The reverse scale shatters beneath the impact. A brilliant purple flash fills the underground chamber. When the light finally fades, everyone simply stares. The enormous demon dissolves into glowing particles before disappearing completely. The Demon Knight quietly studies his own fist. That attack was strange. He intended to use a ground impact technique. The result looked completely different. Maybe the game has some kind of skill recognition bug. Before he can think further, an angry voice interrupts him. The priestess has already pinned the last surviving cultist to the ground. The terrified man screams that their king cannot possibly have been defeated. She looks toward the Demon Knight. Would he like to personally execute the final traitor? The young man notices the quest objective is still incomplete. Perfect. Once this is over, he can finally submit a bug report and log out. He slowly approaches the prisoner. Each step echoes through the silent chamber. Stopping directly in front of him, he lowers the crimson blade toward the cultist's face. Calmly, he tells the man to keep talking. He wants to know exactly how much suffering the cultist believes he can endure. The prisoner's entire body trembles beneath the pointed sword. The archmage suddenly asks him to wait. The young man briefly wonders whether she plans to stop the execution. Instead, she simply asks him to make it quick. The cultist has already talked long enough. His death will preserve the evidence they need. The Demon Knight silently nods. Without hesitation, one clean strike ends the man's life. The priestess quietly agrees. Only now can the victims finally rest in peace. The green-haired guide steps forward. With an unusually serious expression, he asks for one favor. Please, allow him to keep one cultist alive. Among the bodies lying across the chamber are his childhood friends, his neighbors, his family. Someone deserves the chance to say goodbye. The priestess sympathizes with his grief. Even so, holy law forbids personal vengeance. She promises the temple will perform proper funeral rites. The young man immediately snaps back, calling those words hypocrisy. Will the temple bury innocent victims together with criminals? Will they label them all thieves before taking everything they owned? The accusation leaves the priestess furious. The argument quickly escalates. Before it can continue, the Demon Knight suddenly slams the surviving cultist's head into the stone floor. The loud impact instantly silences everyone. Calmly, he tells the green-haired guide to take the prisoner. The priestess looks at him in surprise. Then the Demon Knight delivers another lesson. If the real criminals had been arrested sooner, none of this tragedy would have happened. He orders the priestess never to forget that. Turning toward the guide, he gives one final warning. If the prisoner escapes, he will answer with his own life. Without hesitation, the young man swears that will never happen. At that moment, the main quest updates. The Demon Knight quietly celebrates. The hardest part should finally be over. His body aches from the battle. Right now, all he wants is a hot shower and his own bed. He opens the system menu. Logout. Nothing happens. A red warning window suddenly appears. Command unavailable. He blinks, then presses it again and again. Every attempt is rejected. Confusion quickly turns into panic. Why can he not log out?